Yuba-Sutter.LIVE's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
All right. At this point, we'll move on to item number 1, the acting company 40th year anniversary proclamation. I'd like to invite Jamie Ferreira, the acting company board president, to come forward. The rest of the council may be welcome to invite down there. All right, go to a proclamation here for the acting company 40th year anniversary. Everybody in here has probably been at least one show over the years at that institution. It's a wonderful place. So it reads, whereas the city of Yuba City would like to celebrate and recognize the acting company on the occasion of their 40th year anniversary. The acting company, formerly named Theater 86, was founded as a nonprofit charitable organization in 1984 by founders Kurt Schroeder, Pat Hill, and Dexter Black. Through humble beginnings and a vision to bring the performing arts to Yuba City, Theater 86 staged its first show in 1987. In 1988, they established the Magic Theater and brought the beauty and wonder of performing arts to the children of the Yuba City area. Through the extraordinary dedication of many volunteers, and the theater company purchased and fully renovated its permanent home at 815 B Street in 1982 and formally changed their name to the Acting Company. To date, the company has produced 291 different performances, along with collaborating recently with the animal rescue group Rescue Paws, raising over $6,000 in donations to benefit Rescue Paws. The Acting Company is a cultural resource that provides entertainment and education that enriches the quality of life for the audience and community, as well as an avenue for aspiring thespians to perfect their art. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Sean Harris, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, and on behalf of our entire City Council, do hereby congratulate the Acting Company on their 40th year anniversary. And welcome. All right, give them a hand.
I just would like to say that on behalf of the Acting Company, how honored we are to get the recognition of City Council. We've been doing this for 40 years, and frankly, I was back there at the very beginning too. So we've been here for a long time, and we really appreciate the recognition of the City Council. Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Photo op. Thank you very much. All right, number 2, and she's already queued up. The quarterly development update presentation by Ashley Potochnik, Development Liaison. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. You've got my last name down perfectly now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hard O. I know that. I remember that. Hard O. All right.
So good evening, Mayor and members of the council and the community. I'm happy to be here tonight to present the quarterly update for the Development Services and Public Works Department. So some things have changed, and I'm going to get into that in this presentation. This presentation is going to cover all of the divisions in the Development Services Department: building, code enforcement, planning, housing, and CDBG, which is a grant program called Community Development Block Grant, as well as the Public Works Department. So Public Works covers a lot of things. We can't cover it all in one quick update, but we're going to be highlighting key elements in Public Works that are also applicable to development and business. And all of this is part of the You Can with Yuba City initiative. So what is UCAN with Yuba City? And to put it very, very briefly, UCAN with Yuba City is a business support initiative that's meant to facilitate and help business and development in Yuba City. So that's existing businesses, existing development, new development. And we do that through the 4 C's, which is kind of dorky, but by prioritizing connection, customer service, communication, and collaboration. So now I'll kind of jump into the nuts and bolts of the update. And we do have, this update is available for the public. It's on our website. It's also available here in the foyer, and it's on our Facebook page. So the first development that I'll highlight is a commercial development that is currently gearing up to start construction this spring. So this is the Harder Packing Company area on the west side of the current Walmart shopping center. This is called Harder Marketplace. And the first development that you'll see there is Dutch Brothers, Raising Cane's, an Arco AM/PM gas station, and a car wash. And we recently put up this development banner. Maybe some of you have seen it there by the Walmart, highlighting that commercial development. There will also be residential development there, which I'll touch on in the residential section. Another commercial development that's underway, I'm sure people have seen it because they're currently constructing new facade or kind of new front of the Raleigh Shopping Center. And these images might be a little difficult to see, but I'll try to highlight if I can. This top black and white image is what Raleigh's currently looks like. So you can see in this little spot I'm highlighting, that is this. So you can see the kind of pentagon shape, not pentagon, the shape. And along the bottom of the screen is what they're proposing. So some key differences, the shape of the building is going to be different. So they're going to have this roof articulation with flat kind of bump outs, and they're adding a new tenant space. So that's exciting. We don't know what that space will be filled with at this point, but it's exciting to see that new space opening. In the housing world, there's a lot of development happening for single family houses. You've likely seen Henson Ranch, which is developing, that's between El Margarita and Hooper, as well as Dunn Ranch. Several of those homes have even been purchased and are occupied. And then there's others that are under construction, as well as a new subdivision that will likely be seeing site work soon is the Johnson Ranch Estates, which is on West Onstott, north of the drainage pond. And then we also have multifamily development. Permits have been issued for a small apartment complex on B Street. From my recollection, it's 12 units, two little 6-unit buildings. The permits have been issued, but my understanding is they haven't started construction. And then there's a 24-unit apartment complex under plan review right now along Plumas Street. And something that I really want to highlight here, there's a lot of stats on this page, but last year in 2023, we issued a total of 32 single-family home permits. So that's for brand new single-family homes. And as of this point in the first quarter, so January to March, we have issued 15 with 13 new permits that when I did this update last week, were just about ready to be issued. So we're on track to be close to 30 single-family homes in the first quarter. And last year we had 32. So you can see that there's development happening, particularly of single-family homes. Another key housing development is Merriment Village. Many people are probably aware of this because of the newspaper article that went out announcing the over $24 million in home key funds that were awarded for this project. They're starting with phase 1, which is 79 units. And this building is the 79-unit building. So it's 4 stories along Walton Avenue. Code enforcement is hard at work, trying to keep the city looking good. And you can see here some before and after pictures of the work that code enforcement does. But the key thing I want to mention here is if the community or the council, if you're noticing things that need code enforcement to look into, you can submit that on our website through YC311, or you can get a little mobile app if you're into apps and submit it through the mobile app. In the planning division, there are a few new projects under review. So these are entitlement review, not building permit review. So this is kind of the preliminary development phase. One of them is a new career training center for Sutter County Superintendent of Schools on Harder Parkway, close to River Valley High School, as well as a proposal for a gas station and car wash just north of the Moose Lodge at the Franklin and Walton intersection. And then a proposal for a new quick serve restaurant, which is just a fancy way to say drive-through, in the Franklin Plaza Shopping Center, which is where Falafel Guys is, and Franklin Pharmacy, I'm quite sure is right there. CDBG, Community Development Block Grants. These are grants meant to enhance neighborhoods, support economic development, and improve community facilities, and applications are now open. If you have questions about CDBG applications, there's staff at the city that can answer those questions, but the key thing here is applications are open until April 1st. In Public Works, there are several projects going on. The Plumas Street project, which I'm sure council has heard much about, but it includes the water tower and archway feature, additional lighting, and the park there by the water tower. There's also some infrastructure projects going on in Public Works that are you might not think are that important for business, but infrastructure is key in order to get business and development to thrive. You know, we need those important things underneath us in order to have water and sewer. So the Newcomb Ranch Development Agreement was recently approved, which is $30 million of public and private infrastructure work in southern Yuba City for the Bogue-Stewart Master Plan area. And then also a new regional levy fee in order to provide for the necessary levy improvements that are needed to maintain the community in that regard. Public Works is also hard at work on some park projects. So the Sutter Bike Path extension is extending the Sutter Bike Path to the new DRS Baines Park, and they're planning to start construction this summer. And then also a new bocce ball courts are planned at Sam Branham Park and a new play structure at Shanghai Garden Park. So I kind of powered through that really fast. But what's important here is these quarterly updates, you'll be seeing them once a quarter, and I'll be here before you presenting them once a quarter, not only to let council know what's going on, but a big piece of this is to let the community know what's going on. This is huge for new businesses, current businesses to know where is development happening so they can plan for business growth. And one way that the community can really tap into this You Can with Yuba City initiative is to come to our quarterly events called Shop Talks. We want to talk shop with the business owners and developers. And our next shop talk, it's a tongue twister, is tomorrow at Sopa Thai at noon. So we'd love to see the community there. It's open to the public. It's a great way for you to connect with city staff and ask questions that you may have regarding really about anything, but business and development is what we focus on. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. Anybody in the public care to ask a question by chance? All right, we're good. Thank you very much, Ashley. Looking forward to next quarter. Been very busy. All right. We'll move on to item number 3, public communication, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allowed 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. I have 2 speaker cards, then we'll get to whomever might not have had a chance to submit one. First one will be Mr. John Sullivan. And wherever you are, there you are, sir. Come on down. Yes, sir. And if you would do our clerk a favor, please, and spell your last name. No.
You hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. It's John Sullivan, Sullivan. I'm gonna try to rush this. I apologize. Hello, my name is John Sullivan. We are third and fourth generation Native American California born family. California is our home and we're standing our ground. I suspended my business indefinitely last September because of the financial and political hostile environment in California. So many others have walked away from their businesses as well. I really regret having to pay my property tax next month because of the state of California has done nothing to protect my rights under the United States Constitution, including our voting system in Article 4, Section 4. You all should read it. Millions of people here in the US and around the globe watching horror as our corrupted voting system that got dictators in South America like Maduro and Chavez elected, and the recall of Governor Newsom removed, and how Newsom changed the law afterwards to make it harder to recall a governor. If Florida's and others can do voter ID, paper ballots, and same-day elections, so can every place in America. And fraudulent elections with the 2.5-year lockdown, all under executive order by one man, not being able to see loved ones for the last time in dying in their hospital beds and having proper funerals. 27 days election votes, all stolen, 27 days for Stalin. Job loss, sickness, and death from forced vaccinations, as the media says suddenly. He or she died of suddenly. Or what about the vaccine cancer? We lost 2 family members to stomach cancer. A monoparty state with no checks and balances, just what the Democrats say and Republicans go along with. Open borders, you see it, it's the recycling of people. We are all disposable, apparently. Crime and drugs pouring across our border, and no wonder we have a mentally ill people here in California and a Prop 1 bond in our face, in our wallets, because our elections that are close, we always lose every time. But it's some more giving. We have measles, typhus, TB, pneumonia, leprosy, hepatitis B and C, HIV, and many more diseases. AB 1346 is already on the law books banning gas engines in California. Many applications, but Newsom is ignoring it for now. Why? It's an election year. The globalists also have a plan to ban all classic cars on the street by 2030. I want free and fair elections. I don't want to be told what I can drive, what I can eat because of the attacks on agriculture and the meat industry. Even worse, if be forced into a digital currency or family is well-informed, are standing our ground during this whole horrible nightmare. And you, the panel, should also not only allow this tyranny to continue and do your part and uphold the Constitution and stand your ground as well. And not only say hell no, but hell no to military age illegal men coming across our borders and terrorists. Look at our townsmen and men and protect them from the harm, not hurt them. These Democrats are so drunk on power. Senator Chuck Schumer told Israel to have an election, so they want to control their elections as well. Wake up, people. All the policies from the left are just ideology from evil minds that hate. Listen to the conservative news anywhere, and left and the globalists have failed us everywhere in regards to America. Our debt, our crime, war, and all the invasion at all of our borders. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Tom Tucker.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, audience. My name is Tom Tucker, last name spelt Tucker, business manager for Harder Packing Company, 1321 Harder Parkway. I'm here tonight to speak to you about the cost of energy in this state of California. Specifically, I manage a large industrial facility, have multiple tenants, and I've lost tenants after tenant that have said they can't afford to do business in California. I'm here to urge you to send a strong letter to the PUC telling them these increases need to cease. Since February of last year till February of this year, 3 increases have happened with PG&E. Our current, from February last year to this year, February of this year, these increases amount to 25% increase in our utility cost. That's on the Harder substation. Power that we derive from the Pease Road substation is 34% increase. My tenants are livid about this. We've replaced lighting, we put LED lighting in. You know, we invested money to reduce energy, but it doesn't seem, no matter how much energy we try to reduce our usage, those left kilowatts keep spiraling up in the cost. So with all respect, I would ask that you write a stringent letter to PG&E saying that they're driving business not only out of Yuba City, but out of the state of California. That's what I'm here for tonight. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
No question when I agree.
Thank you for your time.
You're good, man. Thanks, Tom. That's the last speaker card I have, but like I said before, anybody in the room that would like to speak on something not on the agenda, please feel free to step forward. Just please remember to spell your last name if you have something to say. Love to hear from you. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to number 4, consent calendar. All matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time that City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Do we have any comments from the public on consent items 4 through 11? Nothing? All right. We can go for a motion for 4 through 11.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
move to approve consent calendar 4 through 11 items.
Second.
All right, have a motion to approve items 4 through 11 by Vice Mayor Shaw, seconded by Councilmember Blumengarden. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, unanimous pass. Thank you very much. We'll go right on to number 12, Yuba-Sutter Economic Development Corporation 2023 SEDS Annual Performance Evaluation. Presented by Brenda Stranick.
Good evening.
Hi, Brenda.
Brenda Stranix with Yuba-Sutter Economic Development Corporation. And we're here tonight to give an annual update on the performance from the SEDS. As you are all aware, well aware, that every 5 years we do a major comprehensive economic development strategy, and then annually we update you with progress towards the goals of that strategy. And I would love to take all the credit, but Cynthia does all the work and she's here, so I can't. So I'm going to turn it over to her and she's going to give you a presentation.
Well, I think Ashley stole most of my thunder with regards to Yuba City progress. But I am going to talk a little bit about what this SEDS evaluation is. It is a progress evaluation of what has been done in the Yuba City MSA or Yuba-Sutter region. And the Yuba City MSA consists of Yuba County, Sutter County, Live Oak, Marysville, Wheatland, and the city of Yuba City. So what it is an evaluation of what's progress we have made over the year annually. And it's our vision to foster a vibrant, prosper, and growing Yuba-Sutter region through exceptional leadership, such as yourself, and involvement in the community. So I'm just going to give you some updates on the entire region of Yuba-Sutter. And so our employment growth has gone up by 1.6%. Labor force has improved. We now have increased by 5.7%. Unemployment, although it does appear to be high, these last two figures were a result of layoffs through temporary farm jobs. And current as of December, it was 8%, but it is now dropping. Our annual wages have improved and they're up 5.6%. This thing doesn't like, oh, did it go? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, one more forward. Okay, our poverty levels in the region has dropped. We're meeting closer to the national level. We're at 13.8%. So we dropped about 1.4%. The median household income increased by 10,000 since 2022. And we are closer to the nationwide median household income. However, we're not close to California, which is another 10,000 on top of that. The annual wages for our region is 55,000. We did improve, but we're falling way behind in a nationwide level. Our gross domestic product did improve by over $600 million. And this is in spite of dropping agricultural costs. So our GDP. We're improving on our educational levels, almost at the same level as for no high school diploma. Well, we're actually a little higher there, but for high school graduates, we're almost equal with the nation. We're better than the nation in terms of getting at least some college without a degree, close to associate degrees, and a little bit down on the bachelor's degrees. But we did increase in postgraduate degrees over the year. So it is improving in our area. A little bit about the development in the area. Costco came in, doesn't really affect us too much, but there was 175 jobs created. There were 7 businesses that opened in Marysville, creating at least 58 jobs. There were 4 businesses that opened in Yuba City that created approximately 100 jobs. And then just Beale Air Force Base, their economic impact to our area, they had $11.7 million investment in our area in their improvements. So Beale is a big economic driver to our region, and we really need to be aware of them and what they do, and really stay in touch with Beale Air Force Base. YSEDC and its consortium partners, we have 11 partners, and we provide businesses in our area, small businesses, which are 98% of all our businesses in the area. We provide them with consulting, networking events, scholarships, workforce development services. And this is all in the evaluation. I'm not going to go over it little by little, but it does represent the trainings and education that YSEDC and its consortium partners are providing. And the goal is to create and maintain a competitive region and to try to keep businesses in our area. In the Yuba-Sutter region, in terms of improving and modernizing our infrastructure, Yuba-Sutter Transit is moving towards an electric-based transit system, and they adopted a next generation transit plan. And they did receive funding to develop their new facility. It was $55.8 million project. And there is in the works regional rail project, which will improve our tourism and services and cut down on our emissions. And that's a long ways out, but hopefully it will come to fruition within the next 10 years. In the region, Caltrans did invest quite a bit of money in the area, over $145 million in investment in their road projects. And in Yuba City, as Ashley said, the Bridge Street corridor improvements have completed this segment there. And this segment cost the $10.2 million. And then there's Walton Avenue Complete Streets Improvement, and construction on that is anticipated to start in 2025. There are some other housing projects that Ashley didn't mention, and these are more related to affordable housing. There's Tranquil Harbor Estates. It's a low-income senior housing project with 20 units. She did mention Merriment Village, and then Richland Village Phase 2 is a 176-unit apartment, and it'll consist of 88 one-bedroom, 44 two-bedroom units, and 44 three-bedroom units. And this is all for low-income and affordable housing. And in Yuba City, we work towards fostering overall quality of life. So I wanted to mention that Sutter County Museum in 2023 hosted over 9,000 visitors to the museum itself. And they had temporary exhibits with a large range of topics. They were awarded a $400,000 grant for future permanent exhibits and educational programs. So they're really working towards increasing cultural and regional awareness in the area. The Sikh Parade brought in at least 100,000 people. Ashley mentioned the pedestrian trails, so phase 1 was complete. The Sutter Bike Path extension, the final design and easement acquisition is completed. And Plumas Street Historical Design and Water Tower Park, that was a $2.2 million grant that was awarded and received and should be completed this year in 2024. And then continuing on quality of life and safety, the regional Tri-County Youth Development Center was completed. It's a 32-bed unit, over 17,000 square feet, and they had the ribbon cutting in August 2023. It will probably be fully occupied by April of this year. And then in Yuba City, the local roadway safety plan was completed and adopted in 2023. So that is a very short informational thing. The evaluation completely will be located on Yuba City YSEDC's website and available for anyone to read. There are a variety of public works projects that are also available. Under Yuba City's public works, you'll see all their projects in the development. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the council or the public at large.
Questions? Go ahead. Whoa. Through the mayor?
Could you go back slide number 9, I believe it is,
Regarding,
your housing,
oops,
low income.
I'm on your thing now, sorry. Which one, Tranquil, Merriment?
Yeah, are all 3 of those projects by a nonprofit?
Tranquil is, and Merriment is Habitat, and the Richland Village is Regional Housing Authority.
My point here is that we continue to, I have no problem with affordable housing. What I do have a problem with is nonprofits making that happen. However, those come off our tax doles. We never get a dime in property tax for any of those property. Am I not correct there?
I
can't answer that.
that.
Right, for affordable housing projects such as those developed by Habitat for Humanity or the Housing Authority, we do not collect property taxes from
Will
them.
be pulled from the doles forever, how long they're owned by the nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to point that out, that I am not against affordable housing, but I want to make it fair for every citizen that's sitting in this room, that they pay taxes. And that's a concern of mine. And that's why I speak up every time I get something from a nonprofit that says they want to develop something. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One quick question. Just wanted to confirm, when you talk about the bike path extension, is that the portion from Hooper to Deodar Baines or to Harder you're talking about? Okay, that's good. And sir, you had a question there. What I need to ask you to do though is, so we can get your voice recorded, is go up here, state your name, spell your last name. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Nope. All right. We'll move on to, and thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we're on number 13, Terrebonne Community Workshop Council Update presented by Ben Moody.
Through the mayor,
Yes.
before we moved on to item 12, were you planning on adopting the resolution for?
That might be a good idea. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I thought maybe I'd just throw a resolution in.
Through the mayor,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the 2023 Comprehensive Economic Development Annual Performance Report and the updated appendices 1, 4, 5 as prepared by the Yuba-Sutter Economic Development Corporation and authorize its submittal to the United States Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration.
Second.
All right, first and second, first by Councilmember Kirchner, seconded by Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and oppose, unanimous pass. Thank you once again. They're already gone. They're right there. All right. Okay, Ben, you're on now, buddy.
Okay.
13.
So, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item before you tonight is really a summary regarding a recent workshop that was conducted with the City Public Works and Development Services team for the Terra region. And so it's a report back and kind of to go through what came out of that and some survey results. And so the purpose tonight is really to present to the full council what came out of that workshop and then provide staff any potential direction. It's an opportunity for council to provide staff with any direction regarding next steps if there is. And so a little history on the timeline. So February 8th is when the community workshop for this took place. It took place in the evening at River Valley High School. And then tonight, March 19th, I'm here before you. The boundary that was notified, we delineated it by Western Parkway on the west, Jefferson Avenue on the north, Harder Parkway on the east, and State Route 20. So everything in the red box. And so this really came about from the fall of 2023 as new development was coming into the Terra Buena area. There's been a lot of outreach to staff, to city council members, to the planning commissioners, you name it, social media. There's a lot of talk about the impacts of what development is doing to the traffic and to the community in this Terra Buena area. And so with that, we set up the workshop to specifically talk about development that's occurring, potential options. And so I'll get into that a little bit here. Just for the record, to notice the meeting, we mailed out notices to residents, property owners, and put it on social media. And then for tonight, we basically hand delivered notes to each property owner. And so to get the word out, and so this goes into the meeting. And so I've taken I'm going to condense the meeting, the presentation that was done at the workshop, and then I'm going to add the survey results at the end of it. And so I'm going to go through the items here. I'll power through it a little bit for, I know a lot of the interested parties in the audience have seen the beginning of the presentation. So the workshop was to talk about traffic circulation, just so how the congestion and development that's coming into the area. And so with that, there was maps presented that showed what we have in pink. These are existing entitled approved developments. And so they're under various stages of construction. So you have Dunn Ranch to the west, the Inner West is building out. You have Faith Court subdivision that's been entitled that Hilbers, I believe, currently owns that, it's been talked about constructing. I don't know where it's at in the timeline, but it's approved and ready for construction. Then you have the Hinson Ranch housing that's been approved, that's currently under construction. You have previously, the last couple of years up here, I can't remember the builder, but a new road here behind the church was built in. And then you have the harder projects that are going on right now with the new D.R. Horton development that's coming through. So there's a lot going on right now that's been approved, the construction is happening. So you got 68 units, 17 units, Hinson Ranch is 96 units, 77 units with Harder South. And then to the north, I didn't talk about, is Harder North. So D.R. Horton has purchased, we're in the process of purchasing this property with Harder Packing Group, and they're working to mobilize on the north section too there. You also have Harder Marketplace that was highlighted earlier today, where you have Dutch Brothers, the Raising Cane's, and the Arco is coming to that east quarter quadrant there. So a lot going on in this area. Recently, the Hinson Farms apartment was brought through a general plan and a rezone application. It's come to the planning commission and for a request for that change to build a market rate apartment complex for 138 units. Currently, it's come to the planning commission and no decisions is planned for tonight. That would be a separate item that would come to the council in the future. With that application to the planning commission, I think that's where a lot of this momentum on social media and through the public really was mobilized with the public notices that went out with the noticing for that. So in blue, I'll just show blue is these are areas that staff's kind of identified as potential. So besides the yellow that you have going on across the area, you also have some of this vacant land that's also in here that's potential sites that's also to be consideration that will also impact that traffic to that area. So 42 acres of development land in the community that's still pending. The goal today at that meeting was to talk about traffic solutions. And so the current traffic conditions, there's been a lot of talk about George Washington. It's an odd intersection. It's with a frontage road. When you have a frontage road coming to a signalized intersection, there's not the depth that's needed for turn lanes to really make that operate appropriately. That was recognized when the development to the west with Western Parkway was put in. And that's why there was real concern and thought put into how the frontage road is closed off and how there's the access, the nearest access, the block up to Libby Lane, and how that comes through there. So that is really a long-term solution for an arterial or a collector that comes through the city to connect to the highway. So you have that depth for the turning movements and to travel. This was always with a potential thought when Western Parkway came to be in the early 2000s is that you would possibly cul-de-sac or reroute traffic so then you would eliminate some of this congestion and some of this odd movements that are happening here at that signal. At that time, there was outreach and the feedback to staff and to the community there was that they wanted it remain open. Even if it was bad at certain times, they wanted to have that option. So where that stands today is it falls under what we call different levels of service. So intersections, road conditions, they're evaluated by a traffic engineer and they look at them and they basically rate them on at this A through F. And so, and it's really, they give it a definition. So it's a signalized intersection. It no longer queues. It's basically significant congestion of critical approaches by intersection functional. Cars required to wait through more than one cycle during short peaks. No long queues formed. Typical delays in the 35 to 55 second range. And so if you look at George Washington, that's where we're at. We're pushing this level of service D during the AM and PM peak hours. So if you go there 7:30 to 8:30, 7 to 8, 5 to 6 at night, you're going to hit that delay period, that level of service D, which is then pushing up to the city's threshold for our level of acceptable service. How bad can you let an intersection get before you do something about it? And this one's a little bit trickier because it's also with it's coordinated with Caltrans, and there's a lot of controls that we don't have because we're dealing with a state agency that owns that signal. And then how do you mitigate that or fix that? So I just also want to highlight some recent improvements with the development. There's also been some recent traffic, I guess you would say, improvements for circulation. With the construction of Harder South, is what we call this subdivision. They've connected a new road that connects to Ruth and then comes out to Harder Parkway. And then also they've improved this at Harder Marketplace, so the frontage road in the very southeast quadrant, how it comes around and ties into the marketplace. They've cleaned up that. Ultimately, it will clean up that corner, so it's more of a city street now. So we have curb gutter, we have lanes, and there are some pass-throughs through the development. It's hard to see on this map there that people, if they want to go right through and then right out, they could bypass it, or they could go up to the roundabout, through the roundabout and around from the signal, and vice versa, back through. So, so looking at options, just high level. These are really high level. These are sketches on the napkin type discussion. But if somebody said, when we talk with engineering and brainstorming, okay, the traffic at George Washington is bad. What can we do to fix it? And so we threw out some options to say what would fix the traffic at George Washington, would reduce that congestion level. And so staff brainstormed 4.5 options. So option one and 1A, what they are is they would add a cul-de-sac, and I'll go through these in detail as we work through it, is that it would add a cul-de-sac onto this leg of Roy Ranchero, and then it would force southbound traffic on Roy Ranchero to turn west and then come down and use Roy Ranchero. This helps Roy Ranchero, and I'll work through the pros and cons. And so then you have 1A where you could do a cul-de-sac up at Jefferson also, where that also doesn't, so instead of just pushing all of the traffic onto Monroe, or is it Monroe? Or Libby, I'm sorry, all of it on Libby, you also push some of the traffic onto Jefferson, so it doesn't force it all there. Option 2A, option 2. So option 2 is you change the configuration of the George Washington intersection so it functions as a full north leg. But in order to do that, you would have to cul-de-sac each cul-de-sac side, and then you would have to pipe the Live Oak Canal in order to get that up, in order to get the traffic up to a distance, and then you would have to send them on Monroe each way to go back around. Option 3, this is where you build a north leg onto, you signalize and you put a north leg onto El Margarita. I'll go into the pros and cons on these in a minute. And then option 4 is you make a connection from the park here on Jefferson across the canal here and connect in here to Jefferson at Ruth. Okay, so every action has a reaction, good and bad. And with that, some of the obvious ones that come to mind when we talk about option 1, the pros, it reduces traffic on George Washington. It's easy to implement. When we say easy, it's relatively cheap. It directs traffic to underutilized intersection at Western Parkway. Cons, it increases travel distance. It reduces circulation options for the other 22 hours of the day. It's harder to get around. And then you increase traffic on Libby Lane. Option 1A, that was adding the cul-de-sac in addition to at Libby, you added at Monroe. The pro with this option is it distributes traffic to both Libby and Monroe. The cons is, again, reduces circulation options. Option 2, so this is the close off those cul-de-sacs or that frontage road at the intersection there on the north leg. So it improves George Washington intersection operations. Cons, it's very expensive. It's restrictive, negatively impact these businesses, the church, the school. It increases travel distances. It increases traffic to Monroe. And so you'd have a lot of costs and you'd be putting traffic up and around. And again, it impacts those businesses. Option 3, this is, and I'll get into the survey results a little bit about this, but this is to add the north leg with the signal. And so it's additional access point to State Route 20. That's good and bad. And so we say the bad is you put another signal on 20. That's the worst. That's the last thing a lot of people want to do is hit another signal on 20. It's expensive. It's disruptive to residences because in order to do that, you're basically recreating your same problem that you have at George Washington just to block over. You got right-of-way acquisition, so it's going to affect these adjacent property owners to make this happen, and there's limited space. Option 4 is this connection. So it's making this connection. Right now, we talked earlier about a bike lane that's coming through here. So we have a proposed bike lane connection that's going through here from the park to the west there at Hooper. This would actually, this is an option is to build a roadway. So additional connectivity, limited impact to residents, cost-effective, aligns with general plan traffic model, connects to the park. The con, it's increased traffic and speeds on Jefferson Avenue. So public feedback. So at the meeting, there was a lot of feedback, which was great to see. We had 120 plus people that attended the workshop. Plus there was a survey document that was given out and available online and then distributed. And we received I think close to 55, maybe 60, a few came in afterwards that talked about the various feedback. One of the key takeaways out of the meeting was that the majority of the attendees, we talked about overall development as it keeps coming to that area and talking about the traffic. But one of the key things that voiced was that they did not feel the proposed apartment complex is right for that location. There was safety concerns at El Margarita intersection. There was a lot of discussion about not wanting to limit the circulation with the Rio Ranchero cul-de-sacs. And then concerns about existing traffic and speeding. So from the survey results, so of those survey results that came back, so the 55 plus or minus that came back, the most preferred option was 4, which was the Jefferson connection. Option 3 was the El Margarita Signal North option. And then you had a sliver for your George Washington option and pretty much none for the Rio Ranchero option. And then we did a least preferred question, and pretty much it kind of reverses. The majority did not like option 1, and then they didn't like option 2, and then it was kind of split here between, if I get my colors right, option 4. Long story short, they didn't like option 1. It was really clear and abundant on that. Signal at El Margarita and the connection at Jefferson were the most not least, if that's proper grammar. So I could stop there and answer any questions. We good? Okay, so taking that data, we dived into these a little bit more. So 50% preferred as discussed. And so we had engineering dive into this a little bit just to say, hey, what does this really look like? And how's this pencil out? And what type of costs are we talking about? And so with this, we do have the existing right of way. So with the bike lane project, a few years back, we purchased the right of way from the molding company to build a full roadway through this section. With that, staff was able to line a road out that misses, the power poles. There's some large, high voltage power poles in there that you're not going to move, but you're gonna go through them, around them, and then fill in that ditch for that portion. And so I think they've got it fit in there for basically to be somewhat of a major collector with a bike lane, shared path in there. What that came up to was about $5 million, $4 to $5 million, depending on how fancy you get to how far you want to build it. Option 3. So this is that El Margarita, and really for me, I think there was a lot of talk about the safety and the concerns about the to the south with the high school, and so it's definitely recognized. It's brought up by multiple council members, and it's been put on as an action item for the department to work with Caltrans to start working on something for El Margarita to the south. And so there's definitely a recognize of some of the stuff that's going on about the left turn movements, the quality of the road, and what's going on in El Margarita and 20. But as far as this, and maybe that's where there's some confusion about, there's definitely a desire to fix that existing problem with the signal. But then but to add a north leg, I don't know if it's totally comprehensive of what that means because of the exhibit that we proposed. And so people preferred this option. But when you get into the negatives at it and you really get into the weeds of what it would take to build this, first, it would take years to coordinate with Caltrans to get another access point to talk about. We would also, you'd affect these neighborhoods because in order to avoid that problem that we have just to the west, you would have to purchase this property and then figure out how to make it deep enough in order to build it so it's actually a functioning intersection. And that's, it could be $7 to $10 million without getting into the weeds, the right-of-way acquisition. We're just putting some high-level numbers on this. And so it's going to be 7 to 10, and you're looking at 5 years to 10 years, maybe depending on the availability of money, effort, and take, if it actually would move forward. We just laid out another option. Instead of building kind of these S-curves, you could line up Bryn Mawr with the new Ethel Drive and cut through there but then you would have to cul-de-sac off those frontage Road's right there again. There's a little bit less right-of-way take. So with that, really, we threw some alternatives on what are the next steps. And so as development continues to come, and it meets the city's general plan, zoning requirements, it's in the sphere of influence, and they bring development projects forward, that area is going to continue to build out. We continue to see applications and then process them under the city's municipal code. And so with that, there's some alternatives that for council to consider is that you could potentially prioritize and fund a capital improvement project with one or multiple traffic improvement options. Cost, priority, and scope will affect project delivery. You could take no action. You require development to comply with current city requirements for traffic improvements and circulation. You could implement development requirements that may help address community concerns. You could provide staff an alternative yet not analyzed that we could come back with. And so with that, it's really to receive the presentation. I'm here for any questions and open up for discussion.
All right, thank you, Benny.
I would like to note, we did receive written comment from Mr. Greg Marysville regarding that he was not a fan of option 1. And he preferred option 4. And then approximately 5 more surveys were completed that have been presented to the council.
That it?
That's it.
All right. So, Sierra, we need to read this in its entirety and we're good to go. All right, we basically came down what he's in favor of. Clearly, we've seen the majority of folks favor option number 4. Did any questions or comments from council before we open it up?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to your last slide, please, Ben. When you speak of option 2, require development to comply with current city requirements, could you just expand on that for a little bit? I think I know what you mean, but I want to make
Yeah, maybe I get a word it better. So, so the city has general plan requirements so that development can't deteriorate an intersection below the level of service D. And so if they pay their impact fees for their fair share, and they prove that they do mitigation measures that don't bring a level of service below D, that's the current city standard, then that development can move forward. And so, you know, and then staff looks at that. So there's current conditions regarding PM peak trips, how they mitigate speeding issues. And so when a project comes forward, we look at that to make sure they're in compliance with the city's general plan and any sort of city standards that we have or policies that we have about maintaining that level or putting in mitigation measures to make sure we address those.
Okay, I guess.
So those are in place now without having to do anything extra.
The second question, sorry, I'm losing my voice, is implement development requirements that may help address community concerns. Again, maybe you could expand on what you're meaning by 3.
So, I mean, what I've heard is speeding. I've heard, maintain access. And so maybe it's a traffic calming measure through the neighborhood or something that staff's not aware of that they've brought up. If it's the Jefferson Avenue, because that relieves pressure off of George Washington, but then there's some sort of traffic calming program through that community as we could definitely look at something like that. It's really high level development requirements that may address community concerns. And so because as development comes, if they are reviewed for conditions of approval. And so there is some discretionary actions that could be taken with development if it's burdened to that nexus of that development. And so we got to be a little careful on what we could just burden any development that comes in. We have to be consistent. It has to meet general plan requirements and stay within that. But we definitely could look at that. Hey, if this project is going to bring speeding cars, there could be a traffic calming element discussed and talk about what their fair share is for that. Implement development requirements that may help address community concerns. As far as what I'm hearing a lot is everybody's is also safety. It also might be we want to see more sidewalks. or some sort of different type of path connection, something like that.
Through the mayor.
Good.
Thank you for the presentation, Ben. And I would like to mention that the city did a great job getting the word out on this. And in 2024, it's very difficult. A lot of people aren't on social media because they choose to. They don't read the paper because they choose to. Just getting the word out is monumental. So thank you for the city for doing that. I just had a clarification on option number 2. And that was one of the ones that wasn't liked. That was to to cap the trench and to put in basically a cul-de-sac on both sides.
You could cul-de-sac it, or you could do some sort of connection, but you would have to figure out how to bring that frontage road up at a distance that would facilitate it.
Is that canal even wide enough to make that feasible?
It is. It's not cheap. Yeah, but in the cities, believe it or not, in the 2004 general plan, it shows George Washington as a north-south connection. And so to utilize that right of way for the Live Oak Canal to expand the road to the north. And so, the drainage is a big thing for our area. We're flat, and we would definitely have to figure out how to maintain its capacity, but you can do it.
All right, thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Mr. Moody, I want to say thank you to you and your team and the mayor and Councilmember Baumgarten for doing the workshop. As many of you know, we all can't be there because of a little thing called the Brown Act. So I appreciate you guys doing that and bringing this forward tonight. Used to live out in Terra Buena, and all the problems that you talk about now with the traffic were there 20 plus years ago. And we talk about all the development issues and traffic calming and everything else. We're easily talking about every road in Yuba City. Every one of us face every one of these same issues, no matter where you live. With that, just a straightforward question to you, Mr. Moody, is out of all the options you've presented us tonight, all of them are viable. Obviously, the people there like option 4, but in your professional opinion, do you think option 4 is probably our best course of action, taking everything into consideration?
Yes, that's the long-term goal of the city for that area to make circulation improved.
Okay. Yeah, because, and thank you for that, because really what we're looking at is this whole area here. We developed this from the county years and years ago. And, if we'd all been there 20 plus years ago, we could have figured this out knowing that all this was going to be there. But unfortunately, everybody in this room, we're sitting here tonight going, we got to figure this out now. So I just want to say thank you. And if option 4 is what the residents want and that's what you recommend, it sounds like that's our best option. So thank you.
Through the mayor. Ben, how many proposed houses are there already in the books here? New. I was trying to do the math, but you.
Oh, gosh.
Too fast.
I
can't count my fingers.
Let me go back. Ashley had it set for me.
See what he did. 70. $330, $335, somewhere there?
Yeah,
New
if you start
door?
counting up here, you might be pushing 400.
Okay, and so that's in the books. That's there.
Yeah,
That-
those are in the books. And with there's no sugarcoating it. With each unit, there's more trips, right? And so, and it's not a capacity problem on the roads, right? The cars could go up and down the roads. There's more of them. But it's really at those intersections where you start running into the problems.
Okay. As my colleague said, 20 years ago, people weren't looking through the lens as tight as I think we have to is today. Okay. I just wanted to clarify for me that it's there, it's real, and I'm in favor of what the 4 looks to me. I would kind of like to see the 2-3 combination of complying. So, all right, thank you.
At this point, we'll go ahead and open up to any questions or comments from the public. If you have something, please step up. And we just ask that you state your name, spell your last name. And if you please give your address. Sir, go ahead.
I'm Randy Underwood, Underwood, common spelling. I live on Hooper Road. I've been there about 30 years. Been in construction most all of my life. I'm a general contractor for about 38 years. I've been through this a few times in different places. It seems to me that we're playing catch up. It feels to me like this should be a condition of approval, that there should be some kind of plan in place to mitigate the traffic, because you're going to be putting in excess of 700 to 800 more cars every morning and every night that has to go out two major intersections to get on to Highway 20. Even now, it's a mess, as you said, early in the morning and late in the evening. Coming back in on George Washington, it'll be 3/4 of a mile long of trying to get through that intersection just to get into our neighborhood. So it appears to me that if all of the impact studies were done on every project, the sewer, the water, the power, all of the impact, the traffic is one of those. If you was to look at that traffic impact study, you would instantly recognize that there's no way that our roads can handle that much traffic. I mean, that's common sense. So it would appear to me that going forward, because we're going to be 2-3 years waiting on a design to be put together, the cost to get it bid out, to get the actual construction under, we're going to be 3 years probably anyway, when you get to get funding for all of this. So we're going to be waiting. I know all these houses are not going to be built in 1 year, but we're going to be dealing with traffic for the next 3 years on roads that are 2-lane roads. You dump all this on Jefferson, it's a 2-lane road. You're compounding the issue. And I know there's vicissitudes on all of these issues, but there needs to be something ahead of the plan where that before you approve one of these projects, there needs to be some kind of plan in place. Are we going to be able to handle the traffic? Are we going to be able to get people in and out at a decent time to go to work? Or are we going to be Sacramento or somewhere else? So those are just concerns of mine that I think going forward, maybe we could look at this as a condition of approval. I know these are already approved. Someone told me that they've been, does that mean my time's up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
though.
you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Sorry, I don't know what the line protocol is. Hello, Mayor, Councilman, thank you for all your great work running the city. My name is Julie Rentner Harrison. That's RENTNER-HARRISON. And I live on Jefferson. And my home happens to be the one that will bear the brunt of option 4. I'm here to share with you all this evening some things that maybe our neighbors don't know about. Which is that in addition to the incredible addition 700 cars that might be going through our front yard and blocking our driveway as a result of this option 4 preference, we're also still actually not a part of Yuba City. We're in the county. We aren't provided water or septic. And so this proposal option 4 actually represents asking us to bear the majority of the traffic from all of this city development on a property that doesn't even receive city services. So I would encourage you to think about other options as Ben's wonderful presentation said about improving improving conditions around circulation, slowing traffic on these proposed connections to at least give us a small amount of quality of life consideration as you think about how to fix this problem. I echo the prior comments that if this is the condition of all of Yuba City, we've got a pretty big planning problem that we haven't addressed probably for my entire lifetime or yours. I want to encourage you all to think about many options, not just one. It's my understanding that these options have not been passed through any kind of a prioritization or traffic study that shows that simply one of them would be a good solution here. And from my experience living in this neighborhood, I believe multiple options are probably required. If we want to maintain at a level D for the rest of my life and the rest of yours, maybe one option will do it. But I think there's multiple options here that need to be addressed, and they're expensive. I know it's going to be hard, but I encourage you to think about them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. Nice to see you. My name is Lynn Bankhead. I live on Jefferson, in the heart of it. I was one of the first houses ever built there 35 years ago. I have watched everything happen in 35 years. I've watched promises of parks, no parks. I've watched roads being built that were never even planned for. I've watched a parkway to nowhere go nowhere. I've watched a park now on Harder take our bike path, and it's going to have people coming up behind my house now all the way out to Sutter who ride their little bikes and look for places to come in and steal things all the time. I'm very emotional about this. I went over and saw Ben the other day. He had answers, but are they the answer? I don't think so. I think this needs more time. I think that to even ask some of the people who live there to sit on a committee or something, let us have part of the action on this. I don't know. I see some of my neighbors, you know, I'm freaked out. I really am. I can tell you when it's 8 a.m. in the morning, and that's not because of an alarm clock. And I can tell you when it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I get almost hit all the time going in and out of my driveway because people speed. I had two guys in a little car yesterday coming down the road so fast, and I went like this just to say, please, just slow down. And they went, okay. You know, I get that all the time. My neighbors and I have tried to slow traffic on Jefferson, and we've been told that we can't have speed bumps. The reason is it's one of the only arteries for our EMTs and our firemen. So that's a consideration as well. Where are all of the auxiliary roads for that? I'm just saying, I'm concerned. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Dave Barone. I live in the area, Barone. I agree with what she said. I think we should delay it a little bit, have a little more input from the public, and maybe expand it. I think it's kind of restrictive because we get a lot of traffic that comes right now down from Butte House, down Royal Ranchero, that goes left or right on Jefferson or continues down to George Washington. So you didn't put any of those in the scope. And I mean, you should consider it, I think. I think the number 4 is a Band-Aid, really. It's a cheap way to go. You have it almost built. However, it's going to impact our neighborhood. And I think it's going to greatly impact George Washington, even more so. And that's what I put in my survey. So I think more time needs to be put in this. I would volunteer my time to be on a committee, and let's do a little bit more studying. The alternative on El Margarita, I think, is the best. You're going to have to do that eventually. It's narrow, it's unimproved. but I think it needs to go in. Then at that time, you could bring in 4, because they could come in from that subdivision off of Harder and come through and get back on the freeway, not impacting Harder intersection, which is already going to be a lot with all the restaurants that are there. So once the restaurant impact is there, people are going to be scrambling not to hit Harder to go out. They're going to be coming down the frontage road and going down to George Washington. I think more time needs to go in this, Ben, personally. So I'm willing to be on a committee and represent part of our neighborhood, and maybe some others would do that. So I mean, there's no reason just to jump forward and put 4 in because it's easy and it's it's not less expensive because 1 or 1A would be cheap. Number 3 was non-functional, really, or number two. That wouldn't work. So that really wasn't an option. So that's my supporting Ms. Banquet, that we delay this, move forward with some other opportunities presented to the public, and have public involved a little deeper instead of just one meeting that I missed. Unfortunately, I wasn't available to go to that town hall. That's all I have to say.
My name's Murray Lewis, last name spelled Lewis. I have a vested interest in option number 2. Option number 2, in all due respect, Councilman Pasquale, would actually destroy my business. It would cease to exist. In 95, when we moved out there, it, just like Mr. Underberg was talking about, it was an orchard, just an orchard after orchard after orchard. I haven't seen the development happen. People used to ask, you guys are going to go out of business. You're so far out of town. Nobody's ever going to come out to see you going that far west. And now we've seen the growth of what's happening coming up this far west. I don't wish to speak against anybody's, because my business is my livelihood. It's what I'm here for. I also live in Tierra Buena, so it affects me on both accounts. But I am speaking for self-preservation, and maintaining my business is my livelihood. And it's also my brother's, and it's also Mr. Roper's and others that live on that corner and that work there every day. I don't know how this is going to plan out. Obviously, I'm speaking my piece against option number 2. I don't think that the apartments that we're talking about in front of, is it Hinson Ranch or Hinson property, are an appropriate, it would just add more to what we're experiencing now and what we're talking about as far as traffic. It would be difficult. It's not zoned for that in my understanding. But there's got to be some other, look at the future development also coming with the blue that's on the chart. The one blue is directly behind my dealership. So capping number 2 would be just very much difficult because people are going to want to come out, go left and go out, and they wouldn't be able to do that anymore. So I hope that we can somehow figure this out. I do know that in 95 that we were the only business that was out there. And here we are this many years later, and we still haven't changed any of the issues that were on the table tonight that we're talking about. But version 2 would be really, it would actually, I'd close my doors. I would have to close my doors because you would literally take my business out of me. So thank you very much.
Through the mayor, I would like to make clarification. I was not in favor of option 2. I was saying the developmental options of 2 and 3 requiring developers to meet the mitigating. I was in favor of the group of being 4, not 2, sir. Okay, thank you. Sir.
My name is Carol McCauley, spelled MC capital CAULLEY. I actually live in a little bit north of there, but my son lives in this area and he's a quadriplegic and he's also a teacher and athletic director at River Valley High School. In my opinion, well, a couple things. You have 55 people who took that survey, maybe 4 more makes 59. And the percentages were 56 to 41, which that's going to determine that number 4 is the best one to do. I don't think that's a very good cross-section of the community. I think the El Margarita stoplight is going to have to be done eventually. I mean, when did the Tharp stoplight get put in? When did the Harder stoplight get put in? And, you know, and Highway 113 coming into 99, that went through several different looks over the years before they finally made the on-ramp and off-ramp. Not that this requires an on-ramp and an off-ramp, but you said safety is a concern. But if you have the stoplights, I think that mitigates it. And it's, you know, State Route 20 is the main artery. To me, that's the logical one to go with. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christy Pearson, Pearson. I live on Kennedy Drive, which is right off of Hooper. Bought my home about 13 years ago. Bought it because I wanted to be in the country, more in the country and not in the city. I have lived here my entire life in Yuba City High School graduate. Been a coach for softball in this area my entire life. I do not agree with the proposed apartments that are going on. I absolutely would like to be on a committee with anybody to stop that type of development in our area. I don't have any problems with people that live in apartments. I used to live in an apartment, but I don't think they're invested in our community the way homeowners are. I also want to know if the people that are buying those brand new homes for over $600,000 are being told that there's possibly going to be apartments staring in their backyards and in their property. So my backyard faces the bike trail. So I get a large amount of people, which I don't mind because mostly the area is cleaned up. But I think the more and more people that you bring in our community, the less those things are going to be appealing, especially for all of us in our community. So I also was a little discouraged because I was not made aware of any of this. I did not get any door knocking. I did not get any letters in the mail. I still have never to this date got a letter in the mail from the city. And like I said, I live on Kennedy Drive, which is right off of Hooper. My father-in-law lives on Jefferson. He's getting elderly. It infuriates me that Jefferson is going to be a through street all the way to Walmart. I mean, my parents lived on Walton, and that is just a drag strip now. So that is exactly what is going to happen to Jefferson, is it's going to be a drag strip. And that is awful. So that is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Chris Kelly. I live on Pebble Court, Yuba City. I've lived here all my life. You're destroying our neighborhood. If you can take care of the ditch by Jefferson, why can't you do it at George Washington? Why is there a price difference there? Let's put a major freeway next to a bike path. You know, you're going to destroy our neighborhood and everything we have.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
Hi there. My name is Robin Fleshman with an I, last name Fleshman. I'm not going to say very much, but I just want you to know what's happened to me in the last 24 hours. I commute to Sacramento. Granted, I leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, so it's not too bad. Every once in a while, I have to wait for 2 lights to go through to make a left onto George Washington to go down to 113. But just tonight, I had to wait through 3 stoplights just to get through from the ranch house to where you make a right turn on the frontage road. That's 3 lights just tonight, and it happens several times a week. So I'm just like, and not only that, it's just roads are just so bad. It's just like, it's terrible what it does to your cars and stuff like that. Okay, another thing, just within the last 12 to 15 hours, this morning at 3 o'clock, a cop knocked on our door because like a door was open on one of our vehicles. And he told us flat out that there were over 20 break-ins and thefts in our area in the last 2 weeks. And so you're going to bring in like elements and stuff and more people and stuff. There's just going to be a lot more crime in our area. And that's just not cool. And that's what I have to say about it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Paul Demerit, 1215 El Margarita Road, Yuba City, Demerit. I apologize because my notes aren't real clear. I've been taking notes like crazy trying to respond to tonight. I want to make clear that one of the concerns, and much of the concerns that have arisen tonight were brought forward at the February 8th meeting, arose because of the lack of communication and what's perceived as a lack of forethought and planning in our community. I've heard it referred to as the Yuba City syndrome. Develop whatever we can get, we'll fix the infrastructure down the road and the impact down the road. That is a perception I've heard so many times. I hope it's not true. I wish it were not true, but it's hard not to get that perception. But we see a lot of development coming. It's challenging. There's a lot of good involved in it for the future of our community, but there's a lot of challenges. My judgment is that wise leadership, forethought, and planning take that into account and work ahead, move ahead, as opposed to doing the quick and easy stuff first and putting that weight on the backs of the developers and those that they contract with, rather than involving everybody in the process. I think it's so important to look at the development. I think it's important to look at infrastructure and safety. It's important to look at a true community-based planning and discussion process. The major response in this venue back in August of 2023 was because no one in our area had received any notification whatsoever about proposed rezoning and development. What the developers are doing on Henson Ranch is a beautiful project. They're working very hard. I walk it almost every day and appreciate all that they're doing and all the effort and the forethought that they're putting into it. However, we are concerned about the apartments. We're concerned about its placement in that area, but we're concerned overall, like so many have expressed tonight, with all of the infrastructure that has to happen to make this happen. I guess to cut to the chase, I would say, yes, I would agree with so many who've said, let's stop and think, let's discuss, let's take a look at this, and let's get everybody involved. Let's get committees, as this gentleman back here mentioned, and others have mentioned, about involving community members in the process, involving the developers in the discussion process. Because I think we can work together with leadership in the community and come up with ideas that not only will serve the community and serve the future of Yuba City, but also will serve the well-being and the harmony that our community has been known for in past years. I think that's a critical way to go, and it's the best I can do tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to say anything? Nope. All right, bring it back to council for discussion.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a big fan of trying to shoehorn in anything. This has been done before my tenure, and we've got a mess, and I see it as being a mess. we can't stop these people from developing their properties. But we can try. When I said 4 was okay, I thought the majority of you were at that workshop. Because that would mean 50% of you approved of 4. Evidently, you're not. I have no problem with having another workshop, bringing people in and working through this, because it is, we've, as Councilman, I think Shaw said about this was developed on old county roads, that it wasn't given the forethought before they started thinking that this is what our plan was going to be. And I've never been in favor of shoehorning something in just to have it. I don't think that way. And I am totally, if all of you in this room were not part of that, I really recommend you step up and be part of the solution. It's easy to come after the fact. So please, if you want more, participate. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Sir?
Through the mayor. We're kind of going yin and yang back across here. I used to live out there myself, just off of Hooper. And everything that we're talking about tonight, it's just a little bit more intense than when I lived there, because when I lived out there, you would constantly wait at George Washington, right there at Dow Lewis, 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, and then you got people turning off the highway, almost getting T-boned. I've lived that. I know exactly what you guys are dealing with. And, you know, tonight, when I asked Mr. Moody what his professional opinion was, I was just curious to see what his professional opinion was. That was it. There's a lot of other things we've got to take into consideration, but it doesn't mean that we're only going to have one solution to this. This was county that was developed and then annexed into the city. And I want to go back to you, ma'am. You do live in the city. She doesn't? Oh. Okay, I stand corrected. I thought you were, because we didn't think there was another hole right there. Is there?
Yes, there is at Jefferson.
Please, Miss
So
Langley.
Yeah, Ben is pointing to that area right there, east of Ruth. Over is part of the county still.
Okay, then I stand corrected. But the point that I was making is, or trying to make is, Jefferson may be part of the solution. El Margarita may be another part of the solution. Western Parkway is another part of the solution. Closing off access to the businesses and the school and the church is not part of the solution, because that would be detrimental to you guys 100%. But if you think over the years, the intersection right there at 20 and George Washington used to be able to take a right turn on red like you can most anywhere, and they changed that probably 10 years ago. That helped a lot. But still, I avoid that intersection when I'm out there at all cost, because if I'm at your dealership or the paint store or anything out there, I'll go back down and go down Hooper, because I don't like that intersection myself. So with that, I think we're going to have to take a very thorough approach, which I know you're doing, Mr. Moody, and we're going to have to find the solutions over time to this, because anything we do can start alleviating some things. And as you mentioned, El Margarita, that's a 10-year project because we don't control it. Caltrans controls that. Anything that goes onto a state highway is them. And we know how the state of California is. And we lost our guy from earlier. The state of California is difficult to deal with. And we've gone from this huge surplus in 3 years to a massive deficit to where they're cutting funding. And I remember hearing about, the Wheatland bypass years and years ago. I moved out here over 35 years ago. Has anybody been on the Wheatland bypass lately? We see how Caltrans has gotten on that. So long story short, we're going to have to figure out what the solutions are. There's not going to be any one solution that's going to fix this. It's going to take the community. It's going to take us as a city. It's going to take us all. So I just kind of wanted to bring up why I asked you your question, because I was honestly asking your professional opinion. Okay.
Through the mayor, thanks. Again, bear with my voice. It's finally getting deep, I guess. First, thank you all for being here tonight. You know, we had, for at least my time working with the city and being on the council, the community workshop was very well attended, probably more so than any other workshop and so that shows, of course, that people are listening and they care. If we didn't get notice to you, apologize for that straight up. It certainly wasn't our intent to move without citizen input. I will tell you that in this chambers and in the 5 years that I spent in here, I've spent here as a city council person. In the 15 years I spent in here as a fire chief, these issues are constantly happening within the city as the city continues to grow. That's not to make an excuse or say that it's right. It's just those things where you live on the edge, these kinds of issues continue to crop up, and I expect they will continue to do so. The fact that, you know, you get energized is what normally happens. Okay, we dealt with this a few months ago on Elmer Road because there's some development up there. So, you know, unfortunately, as the vice mayor mentioned, I've got a few bullet points here. In some cases, we own what's going on in Tierra Buena, and in some cases we don't. So for the stuff that we own, because we've allowed it to develop while it's been within in the city, and I think that process started about 2001, when the city began serving that area. There are things that we inherited, and there are things that we have created, and we own those. Okay, there's nobody sitting up here saying we don't own some of that stuff. I'm not trying to deflect at all. But with that, and you out there today and those who have spoken, and I've spoken with others at other opportunities, know that this is a challenge. And as the vice mayor and other members of the council have mentioned, there's not a one-size solution. If we do something in El Margarita, I'm going to fill the chambers with people on El Margarita. If I do something on Libby, the Libby people are going to come, and they have every right to do so. And we certainly encourage, you know, the public input. I don't see a one solution that's going to be all of a sudden this thing happens and everybody's happy. One thing that I want to mention, and I really feel strongly about this, and this goes back to my fear of traffic accidents, is El Margarita. And, you know, one of the gentlemen spoke about El Margarita. Man, I tell you what, and women, I sure could use your help with Caltrans on dealing with that intersection. So that intersection is destined to have a catastrophe at some point. If it, you know, it really is. We've got high school kids turning there, and you know, the city manager hears from me periodically about, you know, El Margarita. And as it's been mentioned, that's a state highway. They control it, and all we can do is basically try to influence them. And we tried to get Caltrans representatives to the community workshop. Guess what? No show. Yeah, and so we're not going to give up by any means, but that's an issue for us, as I think, you know, El Margarita and a safe intersection El Margarita should be part of the solution. As far as, you know, I've always been hesitant since I was elected to kick the can down the road, right? But I'm also one that doesn't want to rush to decisions. And, you know, if there's the need for us to do some more outreach and try to continue to develop solutions, I'm 100% by that. What I would suggest, though, is that some way or another, that the city begin to start putting money aside for whatever the option or options are, so that we can, you know, start to plan for that. And there may be some money available, there may be some grants available, et cetera. But, and I don't know what we cut. I know we're in the budget development session or section of our work calendar, but we need to start dealing with this. And trust me when I say there are other areas within the city, south, east, west, that have similar concerns about traffic issues because the city's growing. People are in their cars. I don't see us doing a lot of, you know, I don't see people abandoning their cars in this city. I just don't. It's a transportation demanding place. They don't want to necessarily take their bikes, so they don't necessarily want to just walk someplace. So anyway, you know, I came in tonight with the hope that we could, you know, have the discussion, that it would be civil, and I appreciate the fact that it has been by far. Because I know this is very emotional. If something was happening in front of my house, I know darn well I'd be in here pounding the table about it. And as your elected representative, I'm here to represent your issues as well. And therefore, at this point, I'm in favor of, we need to start putting some money away, but it's in our best interest and people that we serve's best interest to probably continue, not probably, we need to continue to take a look at solutions. Thank you.
Through the mayor. Yep. First of all, thank you, everyone who came in tonight. This is part of the process. I did not attend this meeting, as was stated earlier, because of the appearance of the Brown Act. So I made the assumption coming into tonight that most, if not all of you, attended that meeting. Apparently, that's not the case from what I hear. We have, thanks to Councilmember Baumgarten, we have been, as a council, looked at the concerns of El Margarita, the fact that it is a state highway, and it's got a high school right there. And so that has been on our radar for some time, and that is a concern. And as was mentioned earlier, we have a state entity called Caltrans we have to work with. Thank you to the gentleman in the back that volunteered. I think you volunteered to get the word out, because that is the hardest part of this job. I don't live in District 2. I live in District 4, and we did have some community meetings a few years back about future development, and it is hard to get people to show up. It is, and usually what happens is when they do show up, it's after it's been voted on, and then they're upset. So thank you for being here tonight. This is a huge step forward, and thank you for being civil on this. And I would echo what Councilmember Pasquale said about maybe taking another stab potentially at another meeting led by community members who live in that area or and live on Jefferson. Is that correct? Yes, and are very familiar with that. And possibly, maybe come up with some alternatives that we haven't come up with yet. So that would be my recommendation.
All right, I concur with both of you, or actually everybody here, in that it's probably time not to give specific direction on a specific option or project to move forward, but we do need to be responsible looking ahead and set aside some money in the CIP plan and whatnot for whatever option is decided. My concern is what would the next step be? There have been a lot of questions or suggestions about workshops and committees and things like that. This is an opportunity right now to hear what options or what other ideas outside the box that you all have in mind, rather than essentially war stories about the lily pad you live on, right? It's a community-wide thing. Somebody somewhere, they're going to have to be a give and take. That's just the nature of the beast, right? And there is no magic silver bullet solution that's going to make everybody happy. And that's going to depend on where exactly you live, and then what solution or what method we have to address it, what that might be. But we are, I think you've heard that, we are open to hearing more ideas. What I would like to not hear is everyone come together and would just war stories about your specific traffic was speeding by or whatever, calling a 2-lane road with bike paths a freeway, things like that. No, that's not what it is. We don't want that either. But to me, I will say it does make sense to punch Jefferson through. However, I'm not suggesting that we find that and that's going to be the one. Like Vice Mayor said, it's going to be a multitude of solutions or multitude of ways that we come up with to address the traffic that is coming our way. But we cannot prevent some of these folks from developing, but we do, Mr. Demerit said as well, we want to do it smart. We want to do it planned. And guess what? It might not feel like it, but this is part of us trying to be smart and getting in front of the thing before we make a decision. This is part of it, right? So, and hearing the committee, hearing ideas and things, this is part of that. Okay, so we did not apparently do the best job in getting the word out, but I got to tell you, we do the best job we knew how, because there's a whole laundry list of things in that thing, the paperwork with the attempts to get the word out. Somebody said they lived on Kennedy, which I believe is north of Jefferson. That's why there was no notice given to that residence. Perhaps it would not hurt to expand beyond, go north of Jefferson. So there was nothing wrong with that. So I appreciate that suggestion and that idea. So we have to think, oh, yeah, hey, how are you guys? I didn't even see you here sitting here. Diverted my train of thought now. I see a familiar face out there. Yet another one, my aunt and uncle. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and I think our next step would be to suggest or come up with another workshop. Is that what I'm hearing is consensus, folks?
If I can make a recommendation
Yes, you may.
for consideration is that, so what the concerns about El Margarita in 20, engineering is proposing to allocate some CIP dollars to look at that and begin some sort of design and coordination to pay for staff time with Caltrans. Is that with that, they're when that it's for, so during budget consideration, that direct staff that through the budget CIP, that with that CIP application for some funding, that maybe we look at adding some money for some staff time for a holistic, maybe a neighborhood, for what Jefferson might look like, or some sort of traffic calming measures for that area. So some sort of traffic improvements for that area through the budget process.
Definitely, particularly when you have, if we're going to have Jefferson go all the way through. I used to go from Terborna School and I was dropping off my foster son at school there from where I live. I go through Highway 20 and George Washington daily multiple times. And I concur with the folks that are concerned with the mess that is. So I'm trying to train myself to go west to Western Parkway, but the thought of double back just drives me insane. So anyway, but
Diana, if you want to
talking about traffic calming and whatnot, that chunk of Jefferson between Hooper and what is that, Stonegate, the little zigzag, whether you go over that's a mess. And if we're and when we open that up, yes, you're gonna have more traffic. And yes, unfortunately, whoever is not here today is gonna be part of the problem in speeding through that mess. And we do not want that to happen. So anyway, Ben, thank you for that. I think some outside the box traffic calming measures, bump ins, bump outs, all these kinds of things that we talk about, maybe get down in the weeds a little bit more, based on if we have some new options, and then dig down in the weeds as far as specifics as the traffic calming measures. And you can do some research even over in Europe or wherever. They have a lot of good ideas that we can think of. We get to the point where we just throw every idea against the wall and see what sticks and see what people think. As long as we come into it with an open mind, realizing there may be some give or take and some sacrifice. There's not going to be a one size fits all solution. Maybe your residence or your house will be affected in that way. Maybe it won't, because it's going to be a community-wide effort. Okay. So do you have what you need?
If Diana could articulate
Yes, ma'am.
the process.
The mayor, please. So if I could address Ben for a moment. Ben, the money that you're putting in the CIP is to address the current leg of El Margarita Road at Highway 20.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's to address left out and left in movement. So to restrict Highway 20 and El Margarita Road, the south leg, to right in, right out, so that we can limit those traffic movements, reduce the conflicts on Highway 20. That's not funding to evaluate a new north leg of El Margarita Road. That process through Caltrans requires a project study report. That's typically a couple $1 million report to analyze different options. And that's not the only option that you would analyze. You would look at other traffic options as well. Let's say you get through that process. That portion of Highway 20 is restricted access, which means you have to go to the California Transportation Commission to get authorization to open the access at that location to allow a north leg of El Margarita Road. So I don't want to give anybody the false impression that this is a project that could be done within the next 5 years. If you look at Western Parkway, that was approximately a 10-year project. If you look at Harder Parkway, that was approximately a 10-year project. It takes a lot of time. And so as we're talking about these different options, and I really appreciate the public's participation, the other thing that I think the key issue that we need to analyze is the acceptable level of service. As Ben said, level of service D is acceptable. And so if, from a traffic standpoint, the reason these projects have come before the Planning Commission and the City Council is because they meet city requirements. And so that's a bigger philosophical question as to should the city's requirements change, right? That's a different discussion because that impacts the entire city, not just this area. And so as we go down this path, I just want to note in terms of general plan updates, we're going to be bringing forward different elements of the general plan for updates, including the circulation element. So as much as we're talking about, let's have a community workshop, let's look at different options. At the end of the day of that, we're likely going to come back with the same recommendations. And so I just want, in the meantime, we do have individuals that own property out there that want to do something with their property. So I'm not sure as to, from a staff perspective, how we respond to them when they submit applications or when they have applications that are in process. What is our response? Because, you know, they have certain property rights as well. And so as we move forward, we can put money in the CIP to evaluate this. If you really want to evaluate it from a comprehensive standpoint, that's a pretty significant study where you have to have traffic data, you have to have it modeled. We can look at our traffic model to try to pull some data from that and to get some basic numbers to work with. But again, I just want to manage expectations for people and to understand this isn't a 6-month process. This isn't a year-long process. This is multiple years to work this out. And we all acknowledge that we're behind the ball on this. We know that development has occurred, but again, it goes back to our acceptable levels of service. And so, you know, I'm not clear on direction of how we're moving forward. I understand the desire to do a workshop. I'm not sure what the next step out of that is. And if we are going to do that, I would recommend designated and council ad hoc so that we have 2 designated council members that participate in this process with the community. And that we also clearly define the limits of the areas that we need to notify so that we can figure out who are our stakeholders and so that we can we come up with an ad hoc of those community members so it's a manageable group. If you put, as we did at that workshop, it's great to have 120 people, but it's really hard to manage 120 different opinions and get 120 different ideas. And so to even have a citizen ad hoc from this area and defining the limits, that would be extremely beneficial so that we can try to work through what are the different options, what studies are required, what are the things that we should be considering. And then from a funding perspective, you know, what are different grant opportunities that are out there and funding opportunities. As you all drive our roads are in terrible condition. It's not because we want them that way. And so funding is not there's not significant funding from the city to contribute to this. And while there is development and there's development happening throughout the city, over time you have to collect that money to be able to put projects together. And council has designated a large portion of our impact fees to Bogue Stewart Master Plan and Newcomb Ranch so that we build Bogue Road to Ultimate so that we're not in the same situation for that development. So thank you for allowing me to be long-winded in this, but I'm still not clear on direction.
You know, it's interesting, Diane, because I was thinking the same thing. I think we have heard a desire to meet again from the public, which is why I went with honoring that suggestion. I too wonder, what are we going to come? Because we've already got some identified options. I haven't heard not one new option other than to have a workshop so give people an opportunity to express their opinions again. I'm concerned that I would like it to be a productive and worthwhile use of staff and public time, which goes back to your suggestion of having a citizen ad hoc so we can have a manageable number of people there. That perhaps the folks can go and that are on the ad hoc can talk to their friends and neighbors or get some written feedback so we can actually have a productive, a progressive conversation about what maybe some options we haven't heard yet. Okay, we just need to know that development is coming because we do have to balance property owners' rights as well. I don't want to stand in the way of development, but we do want to be smart about it. And if your desire is as residents in that area, you want to hear your voice heard more or have some more discussions about options, then we're prepared to accommodate that. Next steps and what's going to come up, the expectations. I think defining the scope is very important, what the purpose of what it is, and go from there. Anybody have anything?
Through the mayor?
Yeah.
Just a quick suggestion, if we do go forward with the ad hoc and we do go through with community participation, may I suggest that the folks that have volunteered in the dais tonight to be a part of that, if they could leave their name and a contact and even their address, so we would have a point of contact before they leave the building.
Through the mayor. Couple of questions, Ms. Langley, that you asked. Scope of how far we should reach. As someone that used to live in Terra Buena, everything we're talking about doesn't stop at Jefferson. My suggestion would go basically from the new development there at Baines Park all the way out through Terra Buena, basically to Township 20 to Butte House, because everything that's in that area, because the person that lived on Kennedy, I knew that earlier because it was beyond, we went out more than we were required to for the outreach, but it was just beyond where it goes. But every person that resides out there is affected by that traffic. So that would be my suggestion there, to make sure everyone is included, because no matter what we do, you're going to be affected.
So my suggestion, so the next two council meetings in April, we have limited council members. We only have 3. So with council's authorization, we could bring back a staff report at the first meeting in May to designate a council ad hoc. And then as part of that, we could then have discussions about what a citizen ad hoc looks like, and based upon that geographical area that we're wanting to cover, to kind of get representatives from throughout that area. So if there's anybody in the audience that is interested, please leave your contact information. I'm happy to take it. You can provide it to Ben or Ashley if you could raise your hand, or Doug. We'd be happy to take your information, and then at that meeting, we can designate the parameters of the citizen ad hoc, invite all of you to participate to help us form that ad hoc committee, and then that way we can develop more of a scope of how we're moving forward.
And if I could add one more thing, it seemed to be unclear a little bit while, Ben, you were talking about setting aside some funds. We were talking about setting aside some funds. And I think it would be helpful, and Ms. Langley helped me in this if I misstep here, but in order to do this, we're going to have projects, and we're going to have, some funding matching set aside. So if we don't start doing that now, and then we decide, option 7, whatever that is the best option, okay? If we haven't done our homework now and tried to get ahead of this, as someone said, plan for the future and not just tomorrow, okay? If we don't do that now, we won't be ready if we decide option whatever is ready, because we won't have the funding, we won't have some of the things done. That's why it's important that we start putting some funds towards this and start planning, because there's going to be a project at some point. We just don't know what the project's exactly going to be. We don't know when it's going to be. So did I articulate that well, Ms. Langley?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Ben, are you happy?
Yes, I think I have direction.
All right. I'll open up for community or public comment one more time if anybody wants to say anything. If you want to talk, go back up here. Spell your last name.
Hi, Julie Rentner, RENTNER-HARRISON. I just wanted to share, thank you for your invitation for alternative options. We actually have lots of alternatives to consider, and we're surprised to go to the workshop and see there were only 4 options on the table, and we were asked to vote on them. So I'm strongly supportive of a committee that will look at options, and certainly saving money for now is an important one. I also really want to highlight that there's property safety and traffic safety issues here. And so the the pockets of unincorporated neighborhood here aren't serviced by police from the city, right? The sheriff has to come report to us and it's an important thing to think about, not just the traffic, but the quality of life. So I look forward to participating in a committee to do that.
Thank you.
Last name Hobbs, Hobbs. A few questions I have. In lieu of not having a solution yet, does the construction, does it halt until there is a solution to address the traffic?
I think through the mayor, I think the issue is the items in blue are folks that are entitled at this particular point in time to develop. The items in yellow are not.
Yellow, I think.
And if we started, and please, Mr. Chaffin, weigh in here, if we start denying those that are in blue from developing, we could potentially place ourselves in legal liability.
Gotcha.
So we do have the option on those things that have not been authorized yet by the city.
Okay, so, but the yellow ones have already been approved. They're already in progress.
I'd let Mr. Moody, I believe.
Yes, and then the blue is potential and purple is proposed, but the yellow is, the ship has sailed.
Gotcha. So I'm directly affected. I'm sure you guys all know,
Yeah, you
you've seen me. I live on the corner of El Margarita and 20. So I'm not to step on anybody's toes, but if that option passes, I lose my house. I've lived there for 6 months. The councilwoman or chair lady who was here, the few meetings that I've been to, she brings up, well, you know, my kids can't afford to live in this area. Well, I couldn't either, but I worked for 8 years. I worked 2 different jobs to be able to afford this area. All the people that sit in this room, they've probably worked pretty hard to afford the things they have. A little side note of that, obviously the safety of the community. I was robbed for $50,000 3 weeks ago. I've made a police report 17 days ago, still hasn't even been filed. I went to the police station last week, sat there for 3 hours, voicing my concerns, the proof, the evidence, the things they had. They basically escorted me out of the police station saying that it wasn't something they were willing to take on at this time. I've filed a complaint with the district attorney's office, still no response. So I would assume losing $50,000 to a fraudulent activity, you know, that would be a serious federal offense. Who's to say when these apartment complexes come in, you know, the crime that is associated with those complexes is going to be, you know, heard or taken care of the public that actually pays taxes they put into the community to make it a place that people want to live. So I think there's a lot of issues. Obviously, I'm just one person. I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Obviously, I don't necessarily like any of the options. It's evident that it's going to happen because these, you know, these plans have already been approved, maybe without the forethought of the effect that it's going to have on, you know, the area. All of you have probably lived in this area for a long time. As you've said, it doesn't necessarily affect any of you guys. It affects the people that are sitting here. So, you know, I don't think there's much that we can necessarily do. It's going to happen when it's going to happen, but somebody has to be responsible for the poor choices that were made that led to this situation that we're all here for. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
Paul Demerit, El Margarita. And I want to thank DeAndre for what he shared. And I want to recognize that Mandeep Pablo was here representing the developers, and I so appreciate all that they have done, as I mentioned before. I do want to stress that part of the concern, and I possibly wasn't clear about this, was that a lot of this began in August 23. Well, we became aware of it when we learned about the potential rezoning and the 138 apartment proposal that had been made, and nobody in our area had heard about that, including people directly across the street. So that's a big key for us, and it relates to exactly what I said about the need for conversation, about the need for interaction with leadership, with community members, with residents, with developers, and so forth. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that's a key issue for us still, is the rezoning and the proposed apartment complex. We are, all of us, directly impacted by all these potential options. We understand, I think I can speak for all of us, that we understand the burden that you all carry. I've had the privilege of talking with Ben and Kevin and Doug and Ashley quite a bit recently. I understand the burden that they carry to make this happen, to make it all a wonderful community for all of us and all of you as well. We support you. We just want to know that we are heard and know that we're a part of the process. So again, thank you for all of your concern and your help and your attention tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good. All right, Ben, if you're got your sufficient direction there, we will move on to number 14. You need to, you want to. Probably give it another 30 seconds, Doug, will be fine. You have something in here?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Before I get started going through the presentation, I did want to touch on that ahead of tonight's item 14. We handed out we handed out a memo with an updated ordinance as well as development agreement. And the reason for that is when your staff report packets were released, we had recently identified an issue that we were working with the property owner's representative and attorney. And we wanted to amend section 5.1.2 of the development agreement. So the existing agreement that was pushed out in your staff report packets, and this pertains to reimbursement of oversized infrastructure that's installed. And so the agreement that was pushed out contemplated a 20-year term and potential kind of worst case scenario, unlimited extensions for infrastructure reimbursement, which caused staff some concern. And so working with the representation of the landowners, we have prepared an updated section 5.2.1 that allows more flexibility. It puts basically the term of reimbursement would be specified in a future reimbursement agreement. And the benefit of that is that allows for a shorter reimbursement period for minor infrastructure oversizing and a longer period for reimbursement if there's a larger piece of infrastructure that's installed. So that was the reason for it. And so should your council choose to introduce the ordinance tonight for this item, we would ask that you refer to the updated ordinance and development agreement. So with that, I will jump into the presentation. So this is for Sutter Heritage Development Agreement Amendment. The Sutter Heritage property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of South Walton and Smith Road. You're going to be considering a second amended and restated agreement. A little background, Sutter Heritage was originally established back in 2005, 2006. Yeah, quite a while ago. The first subdivision map, SM 0505, established a 162 lot single family residential subdivision that was phases 1 and 2. At the time, phase 3 was unmapped, and the project at that time included a development agreement. Fast forward to 2008, 2009, they came back to entitle phase 3. It resulted in 24 single family residential lots in development agreement amendment with a 20-year term. So the current agreement that's in place goes out to 2029 today. It's a 33-acre parcel, provides for a total of 186 single-family lots, as well as a 0.8-acre park. This is a copy of the original 2005 map that was approved. Here you will see the neighborhood park, which is located on the north side of Smith Road. Pebble Beach Drive extends into the project through near the center of the project. You will see phases 1, 2, and at that time, phase 3 was unmapped. This is the 2000 subdivision map 0801, which provided the 24 additional lots for phase 3. You've seen this slide from me before. Development agreements cover a wide range of things, and they basically cover things that aren't covered by standard planning, zoning, and development and design standards. So they can be very wide ranging, and that means that each agreement must be considered under its own merits. So what's included in this updated agreement? Well, we are proposing to eliminate from the existing agreement, section 3.5. It required that 10% of housing be dedicated as affordable or pay an in lieu fee. The problem was that the obligation was never a city requirement because a city had never actually adopted an inclusionary housing ordinance that established both detailed requirements or an in lieu fee. This obligation resulted in a competitive disadvantage in the marketplace for this project over the last 18 years. Can you imagine if you're a merchant home builder who comes to Yuba City and you're looking for entitled land? Of all the land that's available, this is the only one that has this obligation. Which project do you think they're going to pursue? All the other projects. And so that was a big contributor to why this project has not gotten off the ground. The updated agreement also provides that Pebble Beach, it was envisioned as a main thoroughfare that could be extended east to connect with Highway 99. That's no longer viewed as likely, and so Pebble Beach is viewed as terminating within the development. And because of that, the Pebble Beach Drive extension will now be a minor residential street only serving the project. This is one of the exciting parts of this project is the 0.8-acre neighborhood park. It would be required to be constructed through the DA by the issuance of the 82nd building permit. So that's almost like the midpoint of build out of the project. The image you see on the screen actually comes from the Sutter Heritage Master Plan itself. And so the park will be developed consistent with the master plan, include playground equipment for those ages 2 through 5, as well as those 5 through 12. And this requirement was specified in the original project conditions and was carried forward into the updated conditions I'm going to talk to you about in a moment. Additional changes to the development agreement. The existing document just doesn't follow the format and approach that we take to agreements today. So it has been updated to be familiar to what the city is used to seeing today. Also, the DA term is proposed to be extended from 2029 to 2034. Conditions of approval. This ended up being, I'll say, pretty significant. So the Planning Commission considered the development agreement amendment at its February 27th meeting, together with updating all of the project's conditions. Part of the problem was the conditions are 18 years old. Some are just inconsistent with current city standards. Existing conditions, we found them to be repetitive, cite existing municipal code standards, which have to be followed regardless. And so to facilitate development, we worked with the landowner team and we basically completely rewrote the conditions in order to comply with the master plan, municipal code, and current standards. And probably the one thing I think we're most proud of is the number of conditions were reduced by 51% by going through this effort from what was originally adopted. That's important both from the developer standpoint to know what you need to do to make a project happen, and also on the staff side, just trying to implement and monitor and oversee a project. So the updated conditions were contingently approved by the Planning Commission, pending the City Council's action on this development agreement amendment. With regard to environmental review, Sutter Heritage, with the 2 maps and the master plan, has had 2 environmental documents prepared and adopted for it, resulting in mitigated negative declarations. The amendments proposed are consistent with the master plan. The infrastructure to be installed will be consistent with the adopted plan, public works improvement standards, and our zoning code. All adopted mitigation measures that are already in place will be implemented on the project. And so as a result, no additional environmental review is believed necessary. Findings. As you know, in order to approve a development agreement, you must make certain findings. And these are the findings laid out in state law. The ordinance proposed before you tonight provides responses to each of these items in the document. And the responses were recommended to you from the Planning Commission. So the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing, make the necessary findings, to introduce an uncodified ordinance of the City Council, adopting a second amended and restated development agreement between the City of Yuba City and the property owners for the Sutter Heritage subdivisions SM0505 and SM0801 within the Sutter Heritage Master Plan area, Assessor's Parcel 56030065, including associated CEQA findings by title only, and waive the first reading. I guess the final thing I would say is that after so many years, I think staff, we look at this as really a course correction. There's a reason that this project hasn't developed for so long, and this is our opportunity to be able to move forward with an entitled project. Representing the property owners tonight is Dan Cucci, who he might have some additional comments for you, and that will conclude my comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Doug. You, Mr. Cucci? All right.
My name's Dan Cucci. I'm with the law firm of Abdus and Cucci. We represent the applicant and landowners for this project. I mean, first of all, I just want to really thank Doug and Ben for all their efforts. You know, as simple as it may seem when it's in front of you, that often has a lot of work and effort and time to sort out some challenging issues, particularly when you have such an old project that had a lot of issues. That's why it wasn't built. I want to point out our client was not the owner when this was approved. They purchased this earlier. So, you know, just wanted to sort of make that clear, recognize they sort of inherited some of these problems and are wanting to try to fix them to move the project forward. We are, you know, appreciative. We've worked out all these issues, including this last one. I think, you know, your city attorney, Mr. Chafin and Doug, to work through that sort of last issue. I propose this sort of, why don't we not, you know, pin down at a time and allow the city and the future developer to work together to find the right timeline that works. And, you know, in this instance, the city has just as much of a position about whether to reject or deny a proposal. So everybody's in the same position at that time for a reimbursement agreement. And so we're support the recommendation, everything that's proposed. We've worked through everything, and we're here to answer any questions, but I'm ready to proceed.
I don't have any. You gentlemen, good to go? All right. Real quick, Doug, the effort you did, you streamlined the conditions 51%. Is that something because this is such an old project, it was just laying on the shelf like that? Or is that the work you put into this one project, will you be able to use that to benefit future projects to streamline them as well?
I think the challenge is, and I've worked at other jurisdictions that had this problem. Sometimes planners like to recite the code, and you don't always need to do that.
I know our attorney likes us to read a lot of stuff that we're about ready to do here in a second, but we have one. Yes.
Through the mayor, when you're inclined, we do need to formally open the public hearing.
I'm going to do that. I have one comment here.
Yeah, actually, through the mayor, just one question for you, sir, because we've inherited a lot of these projects, and I realize it's not the current owners and stuff, that it's already been 18 years. We're adding another 10 years to the DA to 2034 or 5, but I mean, I'm looking at 10 more years out on this. What's a realistic time frame that the owners might be looking to develop this? Because even though house prices are up and mortgage rates are up, we still have a housing shortage out here. So I'm just curious if there's something on the horizon, 5 years they're trying to get it done, or are we looking at 2034?
So I can tell you straight face, we've had multiple buyers very interested in the property who've gone through due diligence, and many of them backing out because the certain conditions
Right.
are just not right. And through those discussions, that's part of what we figured out we needed to address. So we would expect a potential developer, in the short term to come forward.
I appreciate it. And where we were at earlier, and we're talking about other issues, we own things and it's time to make things right, as Mr. Libby brought this forward, because it was a disadvantage to the property owner. So thank you.
All right, that being said, we're going to open up the public hearing for the Sutter Heritage Development Agreement, which is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Looks like we might have one. Welcome, sir.
Can you hear me now? John Olson, Olson. I'm actually on Smith Road. I'm in favor of the project, and I'm surprised that I didn't know it had an 18-year history. I've met the owners of the land or some of the workers out there. What I'm curious about, you may not have any idea about this at all, but there's a lot of city planning proposed for the north side of Smith Road, going further towards 99. The map, I think, still currently shows a business park. Not positive about that. Last time I looked, it did. I'm just curious about the timeline on other infrastructure and things that will take place in ancillary to this project, or if they're related in any way or separate.
Probably hard to predict that.
I've kind of figured that. I'm just curious if there's any thought at this point, though.
Doug, do you have?
There are some higher density employment uses that are further to the east. So that would be east of this project, east of Gilsizer Slough. There's been no discussion with anyone in, I think, recent times about developing that property. So
And it's-
nothing is in the works.
And it's still in the county.
Yes, and it is still in the county.
That was
Got a
my
better
question.
answer for you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we no further. We'll close the public hearing, bring it back matter to council. If anybody, whomever decides to do the action, we do have to read the whole thing.
Through the mayor.
Sure.
I move that we introduce an ordinance, uncodified ordinance to the City Council of the City of Yuba City adopting a second amendment and restated development agreement between the City of Yuba City and Chauhan and Sons, Inc., Harnik Singh and Navjot Bala and Pardeep K. Chauhan for the Sutter Heritage subdivisions SM 0505 and SM 0801 with the Sutter Heritage Master Plan Area Assessors Parcel 5603.065, including associated CEQA findings by title only and waive the first reading.
Vice Mayor, does that include the updated ordinance and the updated development agreement in your motion?
Mr. Attorney, it sure does.
Thank you very much.
Second?
That was too easy. You have it a lot easier. All right, we have a first and second to introduce the uncodified ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
And opposed, unanimous approval. All right. Going on to number 15, water system consolidation for Wildwood East Mutual Water Company. You're welcome to stay, Harnik. All right.
All right, Kevin. It's done, Kevin.
What I win?
Yeah.
I get a motion.
So location map right here, I got that. Wildwood, the water company, type of water. Well,
it has very high arsenic levels and nitrate levels. Also, a new EPA constituent, the PFAS, is detectable. The big one that's triggering this action tonight is the chromium-6. It will exceed a new state MCL that is forthcoming. So they're not meeting future drinking water standards, and the water company is requesting through the state of California to consolidate its water system. They want to connect to the city's water system. And with that, the state is then requesting a letter of intent from the city to work towards connecting towards to the city water system. Staff evaluated the request and determined that it is technically feasible to connect to our water system. We have the water rights, we have the capacity. Ben had a project over 10 years ago, a great project to run a water main out to Franklin and Township to serve the school out there, and even put in some T's in that water main for such time that the system wanted to connect. So if the state approves the water company's request to consolidate, then the water company will be responsible for installing a brand new distribution system designed to meet city standards. For the fiscal impact, the construction of that new system would be at no cost to the city of Yuba City. Properties that do connect would be responsible for paying connection fees, and then of course their monthly utility bills. Our staff time for reviewing and assuring that the new water system meets city standards would be covered by our plan check and inspection fees. Alternatives to the action tonight would be to not approve a letter of intent to work towards this consolidation. And if that were the case, then the private water system would have to find other solutions to meet state drinking water standards. Lowering that chromium level, it's kind of forcing their hand. They wanted to stay on their own system as long as they could, and now it's time that they can't.
Will they continue to be able to use their existing system for irrigation, or?
Technically, they could. That would be a very complicated endeavor because in a lot of cases, when it's just a private, a single residence that has their own water well, a lot of times they'll want to use that for landscaping purposes. So they're not paying the city rate to do that. This would be a little more complicated because they have a single well and they'd have to maintain that existing distribution system for that purpose. But we can definitely allow backflow preventers, and if they want to go down that path, it would be an option.
Any member of the public care to comment? Nope. Okay. Time for action.
Through the mayor.
Right.
I recommend adopting a resolution approving the consolidation of the Wildwood East Mutual Water Company's water system with the city's water system and authorizing the Public Works Director to sign a letter of intent to work towards said consolidation.
Second.
All right, first and second to approve a resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Kevin. Number 16, Bridge Street Remnant Property Alternatives, Ashley Potochnik.
Hello again. Good evening. The item before you is for a discussion and to provide staff with direction regarding potential development of the Bridge Street properties. So I've highlighted them here in yellow, and I'll get into kind of the background of why these properties are up for discussion tonight. So a bit of background, as you're probably very familiar, the Bridge Street widening project, which connected the corridor from State Route 99 to State Route 70, was a phase of that was completed in 2023. It's a multi-phased project, has been multi-phased, but a big chunk of it was completed last year in 2023. And to facilitate the improvements for that chunk, residential properties were purchased along the north boundary between Gray Avenue and Cooper Avenue. So those properties are highlighted on this map in yellow. And I'll note that these two properties along Brown Avenue and Bridge Street are located behind the new masonry wall that was installed along the Bridge Street widening project. Those properties are behind the wall, and the intent is to go through the Surplus Land Act for those properties in order to have them develop as single-family residential homes. So the properties that we are discussing tonight are the properties between Hughes Avenue and Cooper Avenue. So they're highlighted here in yellow. In the staff report and in this presentation, I'll outline 7 potential development alternatives, but this is not a comprehensive list. There may be other alternatives that are more feasible for this location, and it might be a hybrid approach, so a combination of multiple alternatives. So the first option I'll dive into is a housing alternative. This it's a smaller chunk of land, so we'd be looking at smaller housing types similar to a townhouse. One alternative we've looked at is an alley-loaded townhouse alternative, and this concept shows something along the lines of what that would look like. So this type of housing development, there's ways that the city could go about it in regards to ownership of the property. One alternative is maintaining ownership of the property and seeking a qualified developer to come in and develop the land as we would like it to be developed. Another alternative is to apply specific development standards through an overlay there, and then through the Surplus Land Act, open it up to the free market. There's many approaches to this, but the pictures and the renderings show you an example of what this housing alternative could look like. The next alternative is maintaining ownership of the land and developing a linear park along the entire corridor. So Morley Park is located on the far east. My east and west this late at night are getting out of hand, but at the far east portion is Morley Park. And so this alternative would be extending that along the Bridge Street corridor and providing some passive recreation opportunities. Because it's a linear style park, you probably wouldn't have a baseball field or a soccer field or maybe even a playground here, but some paths, as well as an alternative that was thrown out by the Parks Department was potentially this Locks of Love, I think is what they call it. And it's like an art structure that then people can attach locks on with like their, I love you dated this day. So it's kind of a cute little community art piece. Another option connected to the linear park is the idea to relocate the existing Veterans Park to this new linear park. It would provide more visibility, as well as provide more space to have potentially a veterans memorial structure, some artwork, etc. Another alternative that could very well be combined with the idea of a linear park is having an EV charging hub, so a parking lot with electronic vehicle charging stations. This could be combined with the linear park, could be combined with the townhouses. There's alternatives, but the intent would be that the city would maintain ownership under this alternative. Another option is providing a mobile vendor food court. This as well could be combined with the EV parking lot, and providing some sort of food truck hookups, something that was discussed, that's shown here in this image. So it's kind of like a campground where you hook your RV up, but it could be a hookup for a food truck, or specific times, specific days where food trucks are there, providing space to be and eat in conjunction with a park or a parking lot. In addition, the city worked with a consultant in 2019, 2020 timeframe named Civilis. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And they presented a couple alternatives for this corridor as well. So one alternative they proposed is the house-inspired office, because this corridor is a pretty residential heavy corridor and has been for some time. And so the idea is maintaining that residential feel and form while providing commercial use, because single family homes on a major arterial are generally not very compatible. Another option that the consultant identified was the idea of having a light industrial incubator, like a maker space. So these would be warehouses, essentially, buildings that businesses could come in and rent this maker space so that they could get their business off the ground. This has been done in a lot of other jurisdictions and is an alternative that was presented by the consultant. The final option that I'll discuss tonight is to dispose of all of the land through the Surplus Land Act process. The Surplus Land Act requires notification, et cetera, in accordance with the act. However, as of January of this year, they changed the size of the properties that are considered exempt from the Surplus Land Act. So now a property less than half an acre is exempt. So those are the options that I have for you today. And as I mentioned, this isn't a comprehensive list, and it may be best to have a hybrid of the options, or there may be another alternative that's better. So the alternatives here are to provide staff with direction to explore additional land use types that weren't discussed, to leave the remnant property as is and add the area to the city's weed abatement program until a project and funding is established, or to establish an ad hoc committee to further investigate potential options. And my recommendation to you tonight is to discuss and provide direction to staff regarding your preferred development alternative, and to temporarily add the properties to the city's weed abatement program and direct staff to initiate feasibility and implementation of preferred alternatives, including actions to initiate disposal of the surplus lands that are behind the new masonry wall at 670 Brown Avenue and 977 Bridge Street. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Through the mayor. Parking. So, I mean, there's a couple options I'm going to ask you questions about here in a second, but if you do the vendor court, or you do something, the linear park, where are people supposed to park their vehicles?
I think that's where a hybrid approach would come in great. So maybe using a certain portion, I'm just throwing out ideas here. Hypothetically, this portion, let's say, is parking, and then the linear park would be here. So the parking area could be used for Morley Park and for a new linear park. So that's an alternative.
The second question is, let's just assume that the food vendor court thing, and actually went to one of those up in Oregon, they're pretty cool. But that would require extending power, et cetera. We're not going to cut up our brand new street to get power or anything like that. Was anything stubbed off there, or where would we pull power from? Okay. Yeah, I just don't want to sit up here and chew up our brand new road. No, again, I think, like I said, that when it was first presented from the consulting company, I thought the food vendor thing had some, I like that sort of traction. And the incubator sounded good too. All of them seemed to indicate a need for parking to be good. But anyway, thanks. I appreciate that.
Through the mayor. Great presentation. Thank you. As we talked about earlier in the meeting, just because you want to develop property doesn't mean it happens overnight. I think that was the main thing that came out of the last hour. If you ask somebody in Yuba City that's lived here their entire lives where the Veterans Park is, you're not gonna find somebody that, unless they work for the city, that has an idea where it is. And I will say that picture up there really was a nice picture, but most of the year it doesn't look like that, including in the summertime. And it's a little embarrassing when we have a city across the river that takes up like more than a city park, and they got the cannon and the whole thing. And you go to Calusa, and it's the same way. And I don't think it's very often that the city has an opportunity like this where a park just lands in our lap. I would very much be in favor of, and there's two parcels, maybe having the larger parcel being a park dedicated to our veterans, and then the remnant of that across the street being just a regular city park, whatever that looks like. But I think it doesn't happen this doesn't happen very often. And I think it's long overdue. Instead of having a staircase to a top of a levee and calling it a park, I think we ought to do it right and have a veteran park there.
I'd like to just echo those. I think that's a great observation. The only thing I would add to that is anytime we've talked about doing anything with that Veterans Park, we've had certain representatives from VFW and others talk to us. So, I mean, if we go down that road, we just a lot of outreach to those folks to make sure that they are respectfully, they would be in support of it, because they cherish that little park. And I know Mayor Harris had to deal with that on an issue here within the last 2 or 3 years. So,
Through the mayor?
Sure.
Yeah, since this is right in the heart of my district, I think the townhouse situation had parking off on the smaller side, didn't it? Did you saw that? So I think incorporating that, whatever you want to do with it, I think would alleviate a lot of the parking situation. However you want to use the second part. I kind of like the Veterans Park idea. I mean, we are a Purple Heart city that we did a big brouhaha about, if I'm not mistaken. And I think those folks would be receptive. If I'm not mistaken, do we not have banners for our service people right down Bridge Street anyway? So it'd be kind of a segue to the park. I know I've had citizens ask me about it, because I was talking to some people and they threw up the electric charging station because there is nothing close by, and you've got 99 and the corridor does go from 99 to 70. So that was brought up by a citizen, brought to me. But I think using that one section closest to Morley Park as parking, no matter what we do, I think would be the best use of the property. That's my 2 cents.
Looking at me, sir. Yeah, it's actually, they're all great ideas. And back where Mark started, I remember the food truck idea came up, and we've talked that many times. How do we find them a dedicated space and give them to where they're not in the neighborhoods and they're not parking at businesses. They have a space to go to. But, it's when you were going down this avenue, I can see kind of a hybrid of not a food truck place, even though we got to find out a place, but kind of like the park you had with the hearts you were talking, something that honors our veterans, that is more if you want to call it almost ornate, something like you would see in DC or something, so that it's not just, what I don't want to do is build a park like is currently on the levee. You have a flagpole, you have a monument, and we call it a park. It needs to be something that we truly do as a city that could do it. But I was going to say exactly what Mark said. We've had some issues with people there before. I don't know what it is about that little park, but I would like to get them on board, and let's look at that option to do something to truly honor the veterans, because we are a veteran community. There's over 4,000 veterans in our local area. And being one of those veterans, I would love to be part of a council that leaves a legacy that honors the people that have defended and protected our country. But we got to do it right. And so that's, thank you, but wasn't a campaign speech. But it's, yeah, he's up for election, I'm not. But that's where my heart would be. But we've got to get the key stakeholders involved, which was probably the VFW, American Legion, Stand Down, the VA. And then if we decide to pursue that option, then we've got to reach out to Congressman LaMalfa and see if we can get some federal funding for that from possibly the Veterans Association. But that would be my 2 cents.
So I'm gonna be the king of the hybrid here. Obviously, hopefully it goes without saying, 100% in favor of recognizing veterans and doing something, I think something creative, something artistic, something outside the box that really creates and showcases and a flagship memorial or honoring our veterans as you drive through that new corridor there on Bridge Street. I'm also in favor of you mentioned missing middle, and we do a lot with mentioning that on SACOG. Perhaps not necessarily townhomes, because I think those tend to be 2-story, and I don't know if the neighbors to the north would maybe mitigate. That's probably why we have an alley between the houses and their fence. But we have an opportunity for tiny homes as well. You could do a little tiny home village. We've talked about that. It gives people some opportunity to do some purchase on the westernmost portion. By the way, Brown Avenue, I'm in favor of SLA, that stuff behind the wall. And then the other place, the chunk between Moore Park and Clark, I think we have a linear park, I think, there, because it's right there in the corner. That would be a great place for the memorial for the veterans. It'd be some good creative art displays as people drive through there. And then I would even extend it, perhaps, if it's even possible, the picture you had of the food truck, I would think. That could be Moore Park. Make Moore Park there, and you can overlay some EV charging stations right there as well. Gives you more room. It gives you a place to park. It gives you some activity there. Also, of course, hopefully before I die, we're going to have a bike path going right through there, near there behind Dana and Dana. So you'll link up the food trucks to the bike path, a linear park, our veterans honored, and some folks who might not otherwise be able to afford a home would be able to have an opportunity to purchase a tiny home as a starter. So it's a lot of overlaying, a lot of hybridization. In my brain, it checked a lot of boxes. There you go. Now what do we do?
Through the chair.
Have a workshop.
Through the mayor.
Yeah.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
We've got a plan to eliminate a lot of the green space in the city, correct? No, we're not going to do Kingwood Park, take out grass, reed.
So we're going to be taking out grass between the easterly walkway and the fences of the adjoining properties to plant. We're still going to have landscaping there, but it's going to be to remove grass, to remove our water usage.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was just piggybacking that of what Mayor said, that cutting the grass footprint at Morley would probably be a nice thing. I've also had people ask about possibility of a dog park.
Yes, we have.
in that area.
Yes. And, Mark, you said you went to those food truck parks up in Oregon. I've been to several in Austin as well. Every vacant lot, man, they're full of them, and they do really good. There's some opportunity maybe just to the east of there too for some stuff that would be in line with that type of atmosphere as well. So, and you have 5 different ideas. I don't know if this is helpful to you at all or not. Are you wanting a specific direction tonight or what?
We do need, well, we don't have to have direction tonight. However, if the council's direction is that it's looking like the city's going to retain those 2 larger parcels, then we know we don't need to go through the Surplus Land Act for those 2
I think you
specific
have that.
properties.
I think you have that. This is
okay.
an opportunity. We have a chance to think outside the box and get creative with something on behalf of the city. So
So that's really what we need for now. So
you have that.
we don't have to start that process.
Definitely, we want to keep it, I think.
The ones behind the wall should be exempt, but we'll still need to submit to HCD to get the approval for the exemption.
This could be a fun thing to work on together. Is it feasible to overlay more? Is it Moore or Morley? Morley Park, as I suggested, is it even feasible?
Well, we would need to go back and research as to how the park was dedicated to make sure that there's not limitations as to how we can utilize it.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you. Thank you.
There is a park just right down the road. I mean, within 1,000 feet.
There's Lloyd Park.
Yeah,
and so
there's a huge park right there.
one of the concepts with this linear park is you're now connecting Lloyd Park to Morley Park. And you would have the ability to also have parking around those parks. And so it just provides that green belt connectivity.
Even the little lock thing is kind of cool. They have that in, of all places, Lovelock, Nevada. That's a missed opportunity if they didn't have one already, right? Yeah. Anyway, you have at least that baby step in the right direction. Kind of the high level decision is enjoy.
Through the
All right.
mayor?
Did someone say through the mayor? Do I need to have public comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any public comment? Tony, come on, man. Oh, I was talking to that Tony. You got one over your left shoulder too. All right, yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Ashley. Well done as always. We'll move on to 17. Any future agenda items from council or public?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I've noticed that, and I know I've chatted with the city manager about this as well. So I've noticed that Mr. Champlin from Adventist is going to various governmental agencies talking about Project Hope. I can't wait to hear from him. It would be important for us to understand since that's going to land in our city. Kind of surprised we haven't. And the second is, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be right away. Obviously, we're not going to be around, but I'm curious as to what's going on with the ad hoc committee for the Sikh parade. And the reason is all this discussion about traffic. When I've contacted those folks in the neighborhood that we were discussing tonight, also have some impacts from that. And at a later date, I'd like to hear if we're making any progress and we don't end up in sort of that into the deadline time and get crunched. So I know we have a good group of folks dealing with that, with the members of our Sikh temple, but it would be interesting to me to see if we're making progress or not. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else? Nope. All right. All right, hopefully this will go fast. City managers report.
All right, just a quick note, the bocce ball courts are under construction at Sam Brandon Park, as well as we're finalizing the bathroom. Thank you for the joint city council planning commission workshop last week. We felt that that was great. Update on the city ad hoc, the city's entrance sign ad hoc. I know Ashley is reaching out to Councilmember Kirschner, and then I think it's Pasquale as well, to get those scheduled. And then for the park ad hoc, I know Josh is working on getting committee members from the other commissions before we reach out to council. So thank you.
Thank you. Homer.
I wish I could speak as quickly as our esteemed city attorney, because I would do it quickly. Attended the joint meeting with the city council and the planning commission. I just want to applaud everybody that participated in that. I think it was a good exchange of information. Hope we can do more of that. I think that's the intent. At the a recent Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency meeting, and I'm sure Mr. Kirchner may have some other stuff, but really the biggest item out of there is that all the entities have passed the fee. I believe it goes into effect here in Yuba City on April 20th or April 8th. I'm not sure which, but so the fees for the Sutter bypass levee improvements are coming forward. Attended the badge pinning at Yuba City Fire Department and at Yuba City Police Department. At LAFCO, we adopted through the work of Mr. Doug Libby, a RFP for the municipal services review that's going to deal with fire service provision within the county. Also passed the budget. Attended a DBA meeting at their invite, and I was extremely impressed by the show of, it's not force, but that's the best word I can come up with right now, of city. I think we outnumbered the DBA with the folks that were there, but it was they were very engaged, and our folks were addressing lots of questions they had, predominantly, of course, about the trees, but that was good. At the senior commission meeting, probably my biggest takeaway, thank you all for being there. Tana, I see you're still here. She got reelected, I think, as the chairperson. I don't know if it was reluctant or not, but anyway, she did it. The change in the bus system that is being contemplated. So I'm looking forward to those who are on transit giving us an update about what their new executive director said are the changes coming for, potential changes coming for how the buses are going to operate in our community. That's it.
Very good. Councilmember Kirchner.
Through the mayor, thank you. Attended the 144th Buckeye Parade in Marysville and the hostess reception the night before, which was, we had a special transit meeting that was called, and that was to give authorization to the transit to go ahead and apply for a $35 million grant, which is the main signature on this is Habitat. And so transit's just a secondary. And if this is approved, that 6 million would go towards some pretty cool things. 3 million would go towards 15 micro transit buses. 2 million would go towards the operating of those buses. And then there's another million which is split between public charging, and we've talked about that even tonight. And it would be a to be decided later. But this would be in the area around Merriman on Walton. And then in addition to that, the other $500,000 would go towards cleaning up those bus stops within a mile radius, which if you've driven down Walton or Franklin, they do need some help. I talked to the transit director, and he understands the city's going to be focused on Walton here pretty soon. And so if they receive this, hopefully the city and transit can work together in that regard. And so, yeah, so we voted on that. In addition, to that, Gil Sizer was canceled. Surprise, surprise. There was a ribbon cutting for a business downtown of Holly Van Duzer, who's she specializes in teaching kids with autism. We did have the special planning council meeting, which was very informative, that the city put on. Sabufka, which was mentioned earlier. In addition to that, there's ongoing, looking for funds to hopefully do sediment removal in the middle of Feather River. In Feather River, West Levee District one, there's the ongoing environmental and cultural resource mitigation. The Sutter bypass is nearing 30% design status. And they essentially declared the El Nino nearing the end, which I'm sure the folks in Norville are happy about. And then lastly, with mosquito is kind of short. We just did approval of a media outreach and then approval. This is a yearly thing, approval of backyard surveillance. And so they fly around. And if your pool is green, you get a phone call. And with that, I'll.
To me.
Yeah. No.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirchner. Councilmember Pasquale, our mayor had to step out.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Attended my Air Quality Control Finance and Policy Committee meeting. We chose to not take on an additional responsibility from the state. Told them, no, we don't want to do that, which we had the right to, which I was quite pleased with. Joint Planning Commission meeting, I thought went really well. I think that was very, very important that we meet with those folks. Buckeye reception and parade. I got lost again. You left me in the dust.
You have the candy, yeah.
Yeah, I had the candy. I was part of the Rotary contacted me because I had done it in years past, the speech contest this last week for their club to progress for this region or whatever it is. There was three really great speeches by some really remarkable young people. So I got to participate in that. Breakfast with the Bunny on Saturday. I think we had 250, Tana. Oh, great. Yeah, we were running out of things. Yeah, it was great. It was really well attended. I think possibly we might want to rethink of doing the Santa dinner because there's so many of them, and maybe focus on the Easter thing because it was so well attended because there's not a lot of that goes on. But I got to spend the whole time with the kids and the people. It was fun. Went to the badge swearing in ceremony just this afternoon. It was nice to see those 4 new young people wanting to step up and serve our community. On Friday, I went to the League of California Cities in Loomis, and I don't know if you've ever been to High Hand nurseries, but that gentleman is bringing outside money into his community in fistfuls. If we could get someone like that to want to bring a business into our community, it would be just remarkable. The one takeaway I took from is they had their Placer County DA and a sergeant as well, and they were talking about there's a flock system that is used. I don't know if we were part of that or not, of surveillance.
So if I can interrupt for a minute, I believe that we're getting through a grant through Sutter County, a few of those flock cameras.
Terrific. It was remarkable what they can accomplish with that surveillance system. There's also our great governor. He puts together things, and he's got a from the office of the governor about excessive heat, and they've got $20 million, and that perked my interest because they want to do a lot with seniors, parks and such. And I think I've spoken to Diane about this, that there might be an opportunity to get the shade structure for the bocce balls. So that was worth me going down to Loomis and spending my whole day. So with that, that's to complete my report.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep mine really brief. First of all, congratulations to our new firefighters and our police officers that recently went through their swearing in. Thank you to the Planning Commission for the joint meeting. That was a great time. The meeting I had since our last one was GSEC met last week, and there is a lot of interest from foreign entities coming into our region. And we're not poised right yet for, to be capturing some of that. But, one of the things that came out of that is they went to Germany, and soon there's going to be a direct flight from SAC International to Germany. A direct flight is going to be coming in the next year. I believe it is 2025. GSEC is going to Seoul, South Korea here in about a month and a half. They're all looking in our region. And why does that matter to us? I'm working with Ashley, and I'm not going to try to mispronounce your last name. But we're working on getting that meeting together to figure out, again, for the future, how do we plug into that? Because we don't have the infrastructure they're looking for. But as we begin to expand out and capitalize on what we have, how can we draw on it? Worked on Barry Broom the last couple of years to where he's looking north, and we're on his radar. The first few years, we weren't really on the radar. It was really the 50 corridor, maybe the 80 corridor, but he's really focused on wanting to expand north. And he keeps reiterating, and he did it on in the meeting the other day about we got to get to Yuba City. And so I'm looking forward to that meeting, and hopefully we've come up with a date. It's just all scheduling right now. So upcoming meetings, transit and RWMA, and to answer your question on the transit, already put the bug out there to have Matt come in, executive director, in the future date and explain how all this is going to roll out to us, because it's best he's got the plan to put all that together. So with that, it's yours, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Big news out of SACOG is the grant Yuba City recently received as part of a little bit over $22 million. We got our share of $750,000 federal transportation funds for, part of it's going to be going towards the study for pedestrian overcrossing or mixed use overcrossing over Highway 20, which will be, future will be, of course, integrated into the bike path from, it's going to be from Sutter to Plumas and Bridge and beyond, hopefully. Central City Plan, that's definitely need to be revamped, and part of that, we get that done, and then developing some objective design standards for multifamily housing projects, which all intended to streamline processes and make things easier to get from A to B around here. So that's some good news. The Race Equity and Inclusion Working Group continues to do its efforts, establishing ways where we overlay those principles with current SACOG policies and procedures to ensure that we're in line with and giving everybody equal opportunity to thrive. Buckeye Parade, of course, is always a good time. Attended that, which was nice. Mr. Jonathan Lim over there did a really good job expanding the footprint of that festival over multiple days and bringing a lot of entertainment and some good times culturally to Marysville. Like everybody else, I did also attend the Joint Planning Commission City Council meeting, which I think was very productive. I agree with what's been said that perhaps we should and we will do it more often with them. They're a valuable part of, as is everybody, but they're a valuable part of the process in here, and for them to just kind of feel and know and have it be demonstrated that they are a critical part of the fold in the process of getting things done around in the city. And the Yuba-Sutter Arts, where they're doing many things. If you get their postcards or just look on the website, it's almost incessant, the things that they put on over there. One of the major things that's coming, we just selected the 5 murals on the side of the old Sutter Theater there. There's 5 really conveniently, based on the architecture of the building, places for large murals, and then they went out for requests for proposals for artists, and it went worldwide. We got some people, some submissions as far away as Italy who wanted to come and put a mural in Yuba City. 100, and I believe it was either 103 or 108 submissions. We've selected the top 5. And that is going to be, it's part of the California Creative Corps grant. And it's going to be like I said, a mural marathon. So it's going to be a 48-hour deal. They're closing the street there on the south side of the theater, April 19th, 20th, and 21st. The artists are going to come. Of course, there'll be food and music and everything else, and just make a big community event out of it. And the artists are going to come and put up their murals, and that part of downtown will be changed for the positive for many, many more years. So, being said, I believe we are done. And you all have a good night, and thank you all for
Mayor.
sticking through. Uh-oh.
You were going to close in memoriam for.
Sorry, I thank you very much. I'm embarrassed. It's even right here in front of me. So, we have, experienced some significant losses recently, and we're going to close tonight's meeting in honor of former Mayor Lee Welch. He served on the city council from 1994 to 2002, and he was mayor 97 and 98 and 01 and 02. So December of 98 until November, 97, 98, 01, 02. So mayor twice, served for a solid 8 years for the city. Also, is a pastor, Larry Ivy. He's a faith leader in the Sutter Community Church who recently passed away. Both of these gentlemen have dedicated their lives to serving our community, and they will be deeply missed. So we will close tonight's very significant and long meeting in both of their honors. Thank you very much.
Yuba-Sutter.LIVE's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders, or even yourself, has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.